Howdy, y'all. DBZALLSTAR here, or Steve if you prefer. And I am here with the one, the only, the greatest Josh Greathouse, promoting the Volume 3 of Bang, the Ballad of the Tiger Kickstarter, which has reached goal, but let us continue to support and boost this to the best of our ability. Let's keep kicking ass and taking names. I'm going to pass it off to Josh for the majority of this while I cover the comments that may pop through, and he is going to do his thing. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for watching.
So, for anyone who's kind of new with this, I'm Josh Greathouse, creator of Bang, the Ballad of the Tiger. Which I should probably show off yield products, right? So this is my kung-fu inspired fantasy. Basically, instead of a guy with a sword, it's a woman with a boot. Now, because, with the Kickstarter, you got to do a lot of interviews, and I'm very grateful. I've been extremely fortunate to have a lot of interviews. The thing I've noticed, though, I'm like, we've kind of done the same interview over and over, and luckily I've already had one with my man Steve here, so I was like, we should switch it up. We should do something slightly different. So I thought it would be fun. Let's go through how I made chapter 8.
Amen.
So, and then, okay, cool. So, how we'll start off is actually with chapter 7. Now, this is the last page of chapter 7. To give you an idea, the way I work, we'll go through this then. So this last page, I knew I wanted to set up chapter 8. So I was like, okay, let me introduce this giant monster. And the way I work with pages, the goal is always to get to point A from A to B. It's always that simple. So it's like, you can have a simple title. So like in this one, it's like, enters monster's den. So for this, it's like, I need them to come in. I need to introduce the monster. And it's always something that simple. So I knew chapter 7 finished up like the first major story arc to this point. By major, the most chapters at this point. I don't want to go into that because it'll spoil. I want you all to read it. But I did know, I'm like, okay, chapter 8, I need to be a palate cleanser. I was like, I just want a one and done, simple kind of thing. Now, one way I work, I like to and also, if anyone's in there and later, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. I've been fortunate enough that I've had people, answer my questions. So any questions, please ask. But anyway, the way I work, especially with my villains or antagonists, I try to do like 3 different categories. So it's either like a bunch of little monsters, a one-on-one fight, or a big monster. So the previous one was the goblin, so it's a bunch of little monsters. So I was like, okay. Before that, I had like or like a small group. I had the bandits, I had some humans. I'm like, you know what? I haven't had like a giant monster for a while. So I'm like, that would be a good palate cleanser of just like them. And my thought was like, okay, I'm going to have like not as big of a storyline, but another major storyline. So it's like, let's have something in between to give, like I said, a palate cleanser. Take a shot every time I say palate cleanser. So ended with that. Now, the way I start, I like to use OneNotes. Is it something like you have to use? No. But the reason I like OneNotes is just because it separates it by page. And this is something, even when I'm working with like another writer, I like to do this just because it's easier to look at, especially like here to be like, hey, okay, I got 8 panels on here, 5 panels, quickly kind of get an idea. The other thing is, I do have a couple rules. Quick thing.
Hi, Abby.
Meet Abby. Has she been asleep for the last 3 hours? Yes. Did she decide to bug me once we hit live? Yes. Love you too. She's literally up here just growling at me. It's like, thank you. Anyway, so I have a couple rules when I write. I try not to go over 6 panels on average. And I say on average because you'll see here we have 8. but most of the times, it's like 3, 4. The other thing I try to do is I try to break it up. And it just might be a little thing where it's like, hey, this page has 5, this next page has 4, this next page has 6. I just try not to get in the habit of being like 4, 4, 4, 3, 3, unless I have a. Now, there's a reason to do it. Like Watchmen does it for a very unique purpose to kind of create a rhythm, and that's kind of the cool thing with comics, especially if you start looking at like Steranko, because the weird thing with comics is you control time by how much you have someone look at it. So, like, the more panels you have, the quicker the beat. The bigger, longer the panel is, the slower the beat. So it's the kind of thing, it's learning that storytelling of like, okay, I want this to build up to this or build up to that. So typically, when I'm writing, I'll kind of go through, and usually it's like, there's 2 things with my writing. I might not have the next like chapter 100% figured out, but I'm like, okay, I know this is where I'm going. This is where I'm going next. The other thing is I try to include the B plot or something else, and that's usually me laying grounds to another storyline. I have a couple a couple that I rotate because I love doing action, but too much like fighting, it does get old. Like you need that storytelling. So this is a good way for me to drop information for future storylines for I can use for action. And it's a good way just to have a nice beat or to build some tension. So with this one, everything was going to plan. Well, I guess we'll go through and I'll pick it out. So yeah, this is the end of chapter 7. And the other thing is with this one, I was looking at Darwin Cook's The Spirit, and they did a lot of cool stuff with the lighting. So I was like, okay, I want to really blow this out where the shadows are darker, but the light is lighter. And it's like I'm still falling under my. Oh, actually, James, that's an important question. So James asked, why 6 panels? If you do 1 panel, that would be a less work. Actually, it's quite the opposite. The more panels you do, the less work it is. So the way comics works are you get like 2 out of the 3. You can have a lot of dialogue, you can have a lot of action, you can have a lot of detail, or a lot of panels. But here's how it kind of works. If you want a lot of action and a lot of dialogue, you're not going to have a lot of panels. If you want a lot of panels and a lot of action, you're not going to have a lot of dialogue. So typically, if you have a ton of panels, you end up drawing more because it's a smaller and smaller space. Like a splash page, it's a ton of work because you got more to fill. And like you can see, I don't mind backgrounds. That's what takes up the most time. Like figures are the most fun. But yeah, and I know James is trying to be like a little cheeky on that one, but it is the kind of thing, yeah, the more panels you draw, the less work it is. It's kind of an interesting dynamic there. But anyway, so, and typically these next 2 ones, the chapter heading and then this one, these are the last 2 things I always draw. But I always have the name of the book or the chapter. This one, I was working security at the time, and I had a resident who I despise. Like the dude made it her. I was his personal mission. I'm not joking. To get on the HR, he made me his number 1 goal, like the security. He was going to reform the security. So I took the word gecko. Hey, Dorson. I took the word gecko in his last name, and that's how we got this creature's name. Because I'm like, you know what? I can't do a lot in life, but I can make sure you're remembered as an eyeless creature.
Josh is just getting into the behind the scenes so far for one of his already brilliant chapters. You haven't missed too much.
So we start off page 1. Now, like I said, this one, I knew I wasn't. It's characters running. I'm not going to have a lot of dialogue. So I'm like, I'm going to give myself a little bit more panels. And I need to do this actually more. And that's the other thing. I'll do something for for a chapter. I'm like, oh, this works great. Then I'll forget to do it later. And I'm like, this sequence I really love. But I knew I'm like, okay, I want the establishing shot of just like a lizard basking in the sun. And the other thing I love, most of these are JPEGs. It's the actual live page. The other thing I love about Bang, I get to draw the most ridiculous creatures. Like Do I have a name for this guy? No. Am I going to draw this guy ever again? Probably not. Is he ridiculous? Yeah. Will I have 10,000 species of lizards that look like him? Probably. But I wanted to set up the characters. And the other thing with comics, you want contrast from storytelling to panels to whatever. So I was like, okay, let me show some legs, a little bit of ass, because, I got to sell a book, but legs for Bang, a close-up of Eddie, and then like the arms and of Yasmin. Pull out again, show them running, show said lizard. This was a fun, and I'm curious because I think most people could read it, but I was like, okay, how do you show like rocks? I wanted that like the rocks moving, that like constant, all of a sudden the ground shaking. And I guess what I kind of like about this, you get a sense of size too by doing this. So, like I said, we have a certain story beat here because we have 1, 2, 3. Like there's 5, but it's like 1, 2, 3. But then it's boom, 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 boom. I don't do this, and maybe I should, but like my mentor Stelfreeze, one of the first things he does is he'll thumbnail all the panels in a book, like just the panel shapes, to figure out the rhythm, to make sure everything kind of flows correctly. So we'll come back to that one. We're going to go through the pages, but then when I start talking about how I do a page. So then we got page 2. And page 2 is where everything kind of changed in this chapter. So I knew they were coming down, have a little bit of dialogue. Then all of a sudden I got the idea. I'm like, what is the creature doing? You can't just have him like losing all the time. Like, what if he gets a hold of Yasmin? All of a sudden I'm like, just that simple question. I'm like, well, wait a minute, that changes things. Did I copy or did I draw twice?
Yeah, Torsen wants to know if you copied panels 2 and 5.
Those are 2 separate drawings, and I can tell you why. This goes like this. This goes like this. There's more of a curve here, less of a curve here. Now, was I probably looking at the same reference? Yes. I will copy panels sometimes. And this might be a case. Actually, let's just jump ahead and take a look.
Well, what's cool is you get to draw legs twice, and some people are leg people when it comes to artwork.
It is fun. And truthfully, like, there's always the whole, like, sexual component, yada, yada. What's really fun, though, with drawing is figuring out how to do, like, humans are weird. We are weird water balloons full of blood. And we move, like, especially do this with your fingers at some point. Like, it is a weird, strange movement, but it's like, how do you capture that in single images? So, like I said, it's easy to kind of go like, oh, boobs or butt, but it's like, truthfully, it's like when you're drawing, especially when I've drawn so many figures, like, and I used to do live drawing, which I miss doing. It's weird. You get to a point where you do turn off like certain parts of your brain, and it becomes like, okay, how the hell do I capture like, I can see the body's doing this. I didn't know bodies can move that way. How do I capture that? But yeah, good question, Torsen. But anyway, so back to this, and I'm like, well, wait a minute, what if the creature gets a hold of her? Okay, then what would the creature do? Well, I can't have him like bite off an arm. I'm like, we can only do so much. What if he flings her up? All of a sudden, I'm like, because originally they were just going to run the whole time. I'm like, well, wait a minute, that's a little bit more interesting. And usually that's kind of how it goes. It's like me, it's me planning and kind of playing around where I'm like, well, that's a more interesting that's a more interesting way to solve this. So, Yasmin being Yasmin, got to do a cool sword thing. When in doubt, like just random shapes behind a character. That's all you need. Like in that, like literally, that's a triangle. I'm not trying to be anything fancy. This I call the like Mike Mignola BS. It's just a random shape. So I did know here, I'm like, cool. This is a moment where I'm like, I want to build a little bit more tension. Go to plot B. Now, plot B has to do with chapter 7, so I'm not going to go into it. But we can do a little bit. So, the other kind of cool thing about this at times, it's like, okay, let me play around with the lighting and setting. So with this one, it's like, once again, I was playing around with the lighting, and I'm like, okay, let's just have this character enter through the black. And it's having this dialogue between these two characters. And I try to use color in a certain... I love looking at like Bronze and Silver Age coloring. And like one trick they'll do is like, you might have like the temperature slightly go up. This one I kind of cheat, like I quote unquote cheated a bit. Actually, let's just pull up the... This is the JPEG. So let's pull up the actual page on this one. So typically I use flat colors. So I have on the, whenever they're like in the darkness, I do a zipatone. That's 70, I guess this one's 100%. I multiply it. And what multiply means is it interacts with the color underneath. So it literally like kind of blends with the color. So to give you an idea, like adding that red, you can see it changes it a bit, like the red and the blue.
And it creates a different effect for sure.
But it also, what it does is it creates more of a hue, so it's not interacting with the black. That's the important thing. Then, like I said, with this, I added a little bit of an underlighting. And usually these are moments I save and bang for when I kind of want to do a certain effect or a certain moment. Because like I said, I wanted like this face to be, this guy to be scary, you know. So playing around with that. And that's kind of the other thing with just bang in general. It's like, okay, what's a problem I can solve? And what I love here, we have like, one, this is 100% in Mignola, like random panels you zoom in for settings. But then it's like he lost the argument. And this is a kind of important thing. It's even just a little thing. Having like this character, technically he's bigger than him, but he feels larger, especially because I have the negative shape literally pointing at him and his like facial expressions. This is one, I think this was definitely a manga. It might have been Gundam. I noticed though they did this dropout right here with like the shadows, like with the lighting effect. I'm like, that would work well for the skeleton in this moment. This is another one of those colors I was talking about from the like gold or silver and bronze age, where it's like, this is all just red. It's just for emotion. You know, it's just that impact. That's the other thing when writing like a page or doing a page, you want like, what's the main panel? And I'm not saying like you shouldn't have like, oh, these rest of these are, I don't care about the rest. Let's just focus on this one. But you want that one that like everyone looks at and goes like, oh, that's the panel of this page. That would be this one. Then our villains exit stage left. Don't say it. And we're back to here. Now, here was the funny thing. Yes. So when I was writing this, I was like, okay, what happens if she's on top of the creature? What happens? And I determined, I'm like, well, what if she loses her sword? I'm like, good idea. But then what? It's like, well, I can have her to like dig into the creature, but then I'm like, well, it felt kind of weak, just having her kind of claw like this. I'm like, that didn't feel right. So all of a sudden it dawned on me, I'm like, what if I had a bunch of weapons up there, just random ones, like old swords and stuff? And actually I went back in at this, which is a rarity I did, but I went back to chapter 7 and redrew that last page to include all the weapons. Because originally he didn't have any. And this is my moment. Like I said, I like to play around. This is me looking at the Akira slide 100%. Because, you know, if you do something based on manga and anime, you got to do the Akira slide at one point. Once again, like this is just a brush stroke, but it's like that big random shape. Another triangle. And once in a while, like I'll do like random kind of like shapes, like more graphic ones where it's like, hey, I just want this to separate the two. And man, I haven't drawn her sword in a long time because I kind of forgot about the bird. This one too, I'm kind of glad Tyler's here. This one is more. I played around with a lot more word sound effects, and these sound effects I got I think I got 100% of these like from Walter Simonson's kind of camp. So, and it's the kind of thing. It's a balancing act because it's like, okay, cool. I showed Bang down here, but then it's like, okay, if I have him rearing up because he just got struck in the head, I got him rearing up. Well, what is Bang doing? Well, okay, if they're on sand, what if all of a sudden the sand shifts below her? And it's kind of that back and forth where it's like, hey, it's cause and effect. Because like I said, every page you want a panel, like you want an A to B. And it's kind of like, hey, I'm setting something up in first panel, delivering in the second panel. And it's the same thing with an issue, same thing with any storyline. You want to set stuff up, drop it, pick it up later. And there are times it's like, if I'm doing like a page, A to B, yeah, I got to know exactly what that is. If I'm doing a story beat, like especially with my goblins, I might not necessarily know where that story beat will go. It's something I can leave for future me to kind of go, well, I haven't touched that in a while. Let's play around with that. Or it's like, well, what if I insert these guys here? What if they do this? So it's leaving like opportunities for future you. Another fun fact, no matter how fantastical the creature is, base it off of reality. So like this is a mixture of the head of a T-Rex, a frog, and then like elephant and rhino legs. And like I said, I wanted to make a creature where I was like, what if it didn't have any eyes? Just because it's a little creepy, but it's also, I feel like it's just unique enough where it's like, okay, and it kind of makes sense here where I'm like, the bright lights like wouldn't affect it. It goes by like sound and smell in my mind. So once again, it's like with this one, big panel, random bug, we'll never see again. I love that motif. Like you'll see random little things. But then I knew I wanted this moment. So a lot of times, like, you also want to think about changing up camera angles, switching things around. But there are times you just want the camera to be perfectly still so you can get better acting. Because it's like, this would not work as well if the camera was moving. I think it can work, but it's like there's something about a still camera acting. Like this is how Jeff Smith works. There's a lot of artists who work this way. And then the other thing is you kind of just want to switch up angles. So it's like, okay, I got a wide shot here, close up here. Let's do like bird's eye down here. So Bang is Bang. It's like, well, I'm going to have her try to do something. Last Halloween finale at the moment. Oh, nice.
Congratulations on that, Tyler. I love your inclusion of random creatures and those setup points as well, because you've said in multiple interviews that one of your inspirations is Akira Toriyama, and that's something he did in Sandland and Dragon Ball aplenty. He would transition to another scene, or he'd start off an entire chapter if his characters were on a journey, and it's just background or some random creature coming out of the distance or in the foreground. And I love that, because even though they're not the centralized point, it gives you something to focus on as the story starts to.
And one, I think like with manga, you have X amount of page count. And I didn't get in this with Omar at the time, because he was saying like American manga. And I'm like, I don't think that's fair, because like manga has to hit that high threshold of like 17 pages a week. And I'm not saying one is better than the other, but when you have to do that many pages, you have to make certain decisions. And what's interesting is I've noticed with manga, they'll do like quieter moments where it's like, hey, let's just focus on the background. Thank you. Let's just look at the background, like set up the set. But it tells you a lot about the mood and the characters. And I think sometimes too, like, okay, this is a fantasy world. It's going to have a lot of random stuff like bugs and stuff. It doesn't mean we have to go through and be like, oh, this bug evolved from this bug, and this bug's natural predator is. It's like, no, it's just, here's a fun little creature. Now, to answer Torson's question.
Yes, he wants to know about the lighting or the separate layer with the brightness.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, cool. What the? Huh, guess that's on a separate layer. Never realized that. Interesting. Okay, sorry. Past me is noticing stuff. So typically, the way I work I guess we'll start this how I do a page. So typically, like when I start a page off, I will go through and separate the panels is the first thing. Then I'll include all the text. There's no text in this page, so we're all good. I will then, interesting. I'll then pencil it. And I've showed off my pencil. Wow, these are some loose pencils, Josh. So typically, like I will do a tight pencil on the figures and a looser one on the backgrounds. Yeah, since this guy is so big, he's kind of a background. Then I'll ink it. Then I'll color it. Also with the inking, so you'll notice this, like typically their stuff's black, but then it's like there's a lot of like not putting in layer, anything there. And that's really screwing me up. I'll then put like a blue layer. Usually it's just a solid blue layer. Then I'll go through and add the speed lines. I like to do this to indicate speed, like kind of break things up. Then I'll do the flat colors. I don't know what. Past me made choices. I don't know why this isn't included, but anyway. This is a rare one where I have like the background, this whack here. Now, this time around, to make the shadow effect, I actually did these first. I just cut in the light here with this yellow. Literally just me taking a yellow, actually the same one, and just cutting in like that. Just figuring out the shapes and making this. Then I changed this to add, which just basically it's a setting that's adding color to it. It makes things look a little lighter. Then I dropped it down to 25%. But before I did that, I went through, and I believe on this one, I took this color here, colored the whole page with this, made it a multiply, which is interacting with the under colors. Then I cut out by selecting this yellow layer and cut out keeping like the quote unquote normal. So, because if you look here, we got the shadows in that color. Oh no! Oh, that's how I did this. Sorry. Now I know how I did this. I didn't create a multiply layer. I took these shadows and I lightened where all the shadows were. Okay, so the normal color is the shadow. Then I added this here, added this there. So yeah, it's kind of like depending on what I do on a page. Like I do different sequences, so it's like it might not be the same thing twice. But yeah, this time around, that makes sense. And I always like to keep, even like with unprofessionals, I like to keep my standard flats on a different color just in case I need to like go back and work on something. It's easier than trying to, like, this is too complex. It's like there's a lot done here. It's easier to go back to this. So yeah, it's two separate layers to make this lighting effect. And that's the thing with digital. It's playing around, learning how to use like the tools in a certain way. So does that answer the question, Torsten?
I'll let you know if he answers in the comments.
So, and then once again, yeah, it's like me playing around. She gets whacked. And it's kind of going through. And I'm not going to lie. I always loved how that guy looked there. And it's kind of playing around with storyline. So it's like, okay, Bang's down. Let's go back to Yasmin. And I think the thing with Yasmin, the irony is she's got a bunch of weapons, but for some, with her personality and story beat wise, we had to go back to her sword. Almost there, building some tension. Yeah. Once again, like I said, BS Mignola shape. Even the backgrounds, like this desert wall, this is more pattern based. Like it's more simplistic. It's not like, let me take time to draw a real wall. It's like, I want this to read fast. So it's like, they're in a tunnel. This also, the sand effect was fun. because it's figuring out this is definitely a multiply, but it's like figuring out kind of the colors, using a little bit of transparency to make it look like stuff is moving. Showing a little bit of motion with Ed. And like I said, I knew with this one, since it was 2 big shots, I was like, all right, let's make these a little bigger, give us a little bit more detail. Then let's focus right. By changing it up, because even though it's a smaller panel, because it's different, you spend a little bit more time on panel 2. Then finally, our fun psychopath gets her sword and starts going loose. I forget where this was from. I know this was from something where it's like these cuts, like having this kind of multiple cuts like this. I honestly forget which piece of medium this was. Then this was writer Josh had good ideas, and artist Josh was like, how do I sign this check? So we have Bang going up because she's got to do acrobatics. And what is a move that would never work in reality but looks cool? Let's throw a sword and have a character kick it. And then it's like, well, how do we show that? Because it's also, this is where like the fun of comics comes, and this is where comics is a lot more fun than like illustration. Because like with illustration, it's a single image, you can only do so long, so much. With comics, it's like, ooh, I got a lot more toys and mediums, so let's figure this out. And Tyler asks, how long will Bang run, or the current main story? No idea. I honestly don't know, because we're about to hit the first major storyline. Then I'm going to translate. I got like 2 or 3 in mind. And then each one has anywhere from like 5, 10 minor story points. So we got a while. I do have an ending in mind. I have set up a lot, and it's the kind of thing, I'm setting up a lot of stuff that I really want to get to draw and payoffs, because I guarantee you, if I can pull some of this off, some of y'all will be like, oh my gosh, he's a genius. Some of you will be like, he's okay. But some of you will be impressed.
The real question is, will it end before One Piece and Berserk end?
Probably not. The problem is they get a team in full time. But yeah, it's the kind of thing. The other thing I've noticed, and I get why people want to know, but it's like, I don't want to be like, okay, so on this page, on this panel, this sets up the final moment, which will pay off here, and you guys will lose your mind when you realize, it's like, I don't want to spoil anything. So anyway, back to this shenanigans. Now the fun thing, yeah, these 2 pages. So I won't forget these 2 pages, because I did this December 24th, because I was working my security job, and the guy decided I worked the second shift, which was supposed to be from 3 to 11. For whatever reason, and I know the reason, because it was Christmas Eve, the night guy decided not to come in, so I had to pull a double, aka 16-hour day. So I got to do these. I was doing these at like 3 in the morning on Christmas Day.
Torsen wants to know if it's more fun working on Bang than Unprofessional, and if you feel more pressure with Unprofessional than with Bang.
So let me pull up.
Also, it's fascinating to have someone like Tyler, who has intimate detail of how the industry works from an interior perspective, ask a question about how long a story is going to run.
I think the thing is too, well, I'll say this. No, like, technically, the fun thing with Bang, no one can stop me but me, especially because I'm self-publishing it. And the interesting thing is, because I don't have a publishing company, there's a lot of negatives. But one of the cons are, I'm like, I can make this however long I want. I could end this tomorrow. But it's the kind of thing, it's like, I can do stuff where, like, well, because a friend of mine who's a professional artist, I don't want to say his name, even though it wasn't anything too negative, but I was talking to him in a shop, and he's like, and this was 2023. Yeah, it was 2023. Like, COVID was just dying down. You know, we hadn't seen like each other for a while. He's like, oh, what are you working on? I'm like, oh, I'm working on this thing, Bang. I think I told him I was like on chapter like 14 or 15. He's like, oh, who's the publisher? I'm like, oh, no one's publishing it. He's like, what do you mean no one's publishing it? I'm like, well, you know. He's like, no. He's like, dude, you do like maybe one issue. If no one picks it up, you move on to the next thing. And it's like, for me, I'm like, I'm having too much fun. And the other thing with comics that no one wants to admit to, no one wants to publish a thing. Everyone wants to reprint a thing.
True. You can just repackage as many times as possible to make additional money. When you're working in independent publishing or self-publishing sort of career, you're right. It gives you the opportunity to be your own boss and to tell the story for the length you want to tell it. Not only that, it prevents anyone from telling you how to manage it. You met Brian last week during the Omnibuds stream, and he is a huge Flash fan. I am as well. One of the biggest disappointments we've run into is that Jeremy Adams had planned out at least 50 more issues of The Flash. But when you're working for a corporate publisher and they're trying to entice a new creator to come on board, they could just throw you right off that book, which is what happened with that. And Cy Spurrier took over. With someone like Robert Kirkman, who runs his own company, but started out really pushing himself to be more independent. And with someone like you, you're in full control of what does and does not happen in your book. And you can work on it for however long you're motivated to do so. And I feel like there's a lot more love and gratification that can go into that. Nothing against corporate comics.
Well, I think the other thing with like the big two, especially nowadays, I think the other big problem with nowadays, it's a commitment issue. Because back in the day, like with the Walter Simonson, you know, if you're going to be on the book for a while, you, like I say, you could set something up where it's like, I don't know what it is now, but future me can pick this problem up and like figure it out, like do something fun with it. And it seems like this whole world's interconnected and well out, you know, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, if you're only on a book for so long, you're jumping in and out, you know, maybe you set something up. The next guy who comes in goes like, I don't know what this is. Like, I have no idea what this, or because it's not something I'm used to, I'm just going to ignore it. And plot points don't go anywhere. Now, Torsten asked about Professional. And I know in like Bunk's video, he brought up Professional as well. So Unprofessional actually started before Bang. This was, if you ever hear me in an interview talk about the real comic, that would be Unprofessional. And the question was, is Bang a lot more fun than Unprofessional? Do you feel more pressure with Unpro? I feel like it's a couple things. One, Bang's a little, I won't lie, Bang's a little bit more fun than Unpro because Bang, I can move along quicker, and it's the kind of thing. It's like, oh man, I just wrote this, and I'm just drawing. Like, unfortunately, I'm about like 2 a year. I need to get a little quicker. I was like 3 a year with Bang. I would like to get back to that, like 3 to 4 a year, just to get a little quicker. Granted, I will say this: if you look at like chapter 2 and chapter 22, there's a big difference in art. So we kind of got into a middle ground. But the other thing with Unpro, like I wrote this a while ago, I do love it. But the other thing with Unpro, it takes a lot longer. And there's certain things I like about it, certain things I like. There's certain things I think I'll change. Because I do have a storyline for, like, I would like to do another Unpro miniseries. I don't know if I would do this many panels again. Especially after working after Bang. Like, I kind of like that quicker approach. The other thing with Unpro, and this is where the difference with Bang is. So when I do like my coloring from Pro or my like extremely professional like comics, I do these shadows. So Bang, like Unpro and Bang, they'll have like the flat colors. The difference is I'll then select these shadow layers, tweak some stuff around, and then that's how we get this. But like coloring this takes a while, but making these shadows take a while. Then it's adding like a little bit of rendering, like on the lips, you know, eyes, like a little bit of stuff there, a little bit of highlight, and then it's special effects. So I think the other thing, like, it's not really a pressure thing. I do think with like, I think the thing with Unpro, I'm getting like, I'm on 5 out of 5. I'm getting near the end. And the thing with any project, it always goes in this cycle where it's like, oh, this is going to be the coolest thing. This is going to be the greatest idea ever. Then it's, I made choices I need to sign. Then it's like, then it goes to like, okay, this is looking good. I'm pretty good at this. Then it's like, I'm done. Then usually it's like a couple years later, it's like, man, Past Me did some good work. Yeah, we should push ourselves. But there's always, and I think a lot of people like quit doing art because of this reason. But there's always that moment where it's like, oh, what have I done? Why did I agree to this? But yeah, it's the other thing is, I won't lie, there are times with Bang, I love the limited palette, but there are times where I'm like, man, a nice purple would work great here, or a nice green, but that's not in the palette. So how do I solve this? So there's challenges with all this. And like I said, with Bang, it's a lot more graphic, like a lot more.
So one question I've wanted to ask on any of the streams, because again, you said that partly this was inspired by Akira Toriyama. And one of the things I love about manga is that if you're drawing a character, in some cases, the age really doesn't matter. You're just focusing on who that character is. But Toriyama, especially with Dragon Ball, focused on younger characters. And even though it evolved into be an action comic, it started as a gag adventure comic. So it allowed for some of the younger characters to get into some lewd situations. The violence, I know it's inspired by, but how old are these characters supposed to be? And I feel like that matters because it allows, to a certain extent, because you haven't said that any of these characters are immortal, it allows for further growth. Whether you do it naturally or through a time skip, it allows for growth of these characters in different ways.
Time skip? Who would ever do a time skip? It's not like that's popular. Why would you time skip? That's weird. Time skip.
Hey, could be worse. Could be the Bang multiverse. Everyone's got a multiverse now.
Oh yeah. So I don't like. I have a rough age for these characters. Bang, I always view like early 20s, late teens. To me, it's like, one, she's not a kid, but it's that period in life where it's like, you think you got the world, like, because with chapter 1, it's her running errands for her mom, but it's like, it's the kind of thing, it's like, she's at that point where physically she's an adult, not so much like early 20s, you feel like an adult. Then the older you get, you realize you're like, oh man, I was still I was a child. I was an idiot. So that's kind of how I view Bang, where it's like, she's old enough to like drink, get in trouble, but she's not experienced, especially because she's never left her like. Well, what's interesting too is I think it was like before like 200 years ago, the average person like lived and died 50 feet from where they were, or 50 miles from where they were born. And that's the other thing, like, not to your question, but a little bit of a side note. I feel like sometimes with fantasy, like, it's cool to have like the giant hub cities, or like, it's like, like a New York kind of mixture. But like with a lot of villages, it's like, they should look like a certain, it's like if you have the Hick village, it should be the Hick village. If you have like the elves or the dwarf, because that's just part of the setting. Yeah, I would say like 21 years old. It's one of those, it's like, I don't want to be like, her birthday's this. I don't even know how the calendar works. I don't know if there's 12 months to this year. That's the other thing with sometimes with story. I don't know how root canals get solved in this world. I know they do, but I don't know if it'll come up. If it does, I'll figure it out. If not, root canals get solved. Eddie I view as like 14, 15. He's slightly younger, and he's like, if he was like a child, his behavior would be a little bit more excusable, but he's not quite an adult, so he still can kind of get away with it. It's that gray zone of like, okay, you're bratty, but you're still kind of young. Yasmin, I think I'm now older than Yasmin, like mid 30s or so, like that, like a little bit premature gray. Fun fact, Brian Stelfring's girlfriend is a woman named Steen. I've known Steen for like a decade, but from every photo I've seen of her, she's always had gray hair. Steen is not the inspiration, but when I was doing like the quick study, like the quick character designs, that short pixie kind of gray hairstyle was because of Steen. So there's a lot of them in this characters. But yeah, this world, so like I view Eddie a little bit younger, and it's the kind of thing like when I say he's going to school, I think this is more or less, and this is something that might be more subconscious that I just kind of realized later on. This is kind of like Charles Dickens with The Christmas Carol. Like Ebenezer Scrooge is at school. So to me, it's like, this is him, like he's old enough to go to like to learn his trade or craft, which is in his family's case is a doctor because they have money. And that was kind of the other big thing. It's like, I don't want to say Bang was like poor, but it's like, you know, very modest living. Dad was gone. Mom's a baker. With Eddie, it was more money. Yasmin's Yasmin. I know that's one of those. I know more about Yasmin. You all don't know enough, so I'm not gonna. Yasmin's Yasmin.
See, I love getting to have a more in-depth understanding. I felt that Bang was in her 20s, and what really helped relay that mentally for me is the fact that she's really trying to figure out the path she wants to take in life. And because she's not left her home before, she's a bit naive. She's a bit rebellious. She's at that age to be able to explore. Whereas Eddie has a similar and yet different problem. He's not left, but he's naive because his parents have kept him basically sheltered until he can continue the family legacy. And I love stuff like that because obviously this world they're living in, once they exit that sheltered lifestyle, so to speak, it's going to throw them through the ringer. And as for Bang being poor, I kind of gathered that because it seems like, obviously you're the creator, correct me at any point, it feels like that hat, that fantastic hat of hers, is one of the things she treasures the most in life because it's part of what her father left behind for her.
Oh yeah, because it's one of those. So originally I was like, well, I will never draw Dad. I don't know if I will or not. But then, and I won't go. This is one of my favorite chapters, but let's open up. So I don't know why. Yeah. Clip changed it where they no longer previews. These used to be previews. It used to be a great time. Chapter 15, if we go a little bit farther, I showed the kingdom and actually showed like what the full uniform looks like. But yeah, the idea was yeah, it was the kind of thing, usually what I do, and Torsten, I see your question, which we'll get to, but with this time, with Bang, I started the character design first, then I'm like, okay, let's go back, like, what is this character, you know? And I won't lie, Dragon Quest IV Warrior has a very similar profile shape, especially with that hat, and I may have stolen that from Toriyama, maybe. The skull part's mine.
Continue to pay tribute to Toriyama.
Right. Oh, yeah.
So, yes, Torsten's asking, is it more difficult to write characters older than yourself because you yourself haven't made or had those life experiences yet that define those characters?
I think I'm at a point in my life, though, because it's like there was a time in my life I got to enjoy First Class. There was a time in my life where I literally had to do some cover art to afford a water filter so I could have clean water. Granted, I've never been extreme. I've never been homeless. But I've had enough experience.
You can move in with me.
The other thing is, though, it's figuring out motivation. I feel like with characters, it's more about their motivations than life experience. So, oh, you know what? Because that does me no good. That's in volume 4. You guys aren't in volume 4, but we are in volume 3. So let me pull up volume 3.
Now, those of you out there watching now or later, you can continue contributing to the Kickstarter, which could advance support volume 4.
And someone kept some of these tiers open until Halloween. Just saying.
Wow.
Man, we're gonna have so many pages open. Okay, so let's talk about a little bit spoiler, but let's talk about the prince. So I knew I had this character, which I'm like, this was another one where I'm like, hey, we just got off a giant monster fight, but I want to have a one-on-one fight, and I want to have Bang fight this guy named the Prince. Now, the Prince, here's the thing. I know he was going to be an antagonist, but he wasn't going to be a villain. And the difference between that is sometimes it's like, well, okay, like if you're driving and all of a sudden like someone needs to cross in front of you, whatever, it's just like, hey, we're two human beings. We just happen to be in the exact same spot in time. Like one of us has to stop, the other one has to get through. We're not angry at each other. It's just the way time in the world works. We're both at the exact same place at the time. That was the Prince. There's no like malice or, it's just we're both here. And he's on a goal. Like I said, I won't spoil it, but his motivations become clear. But that's how it started. It's like, hey, he's not the villain here. He's got his own motivations. So let's explore that idea. And that's kind of, so like if I have an older character, a younger character, it's more about what's their motivations. So, another good one. This is always a fun thing because it's like, hey, read my book. Hey, let me spoil everything so you don't have to read my book. But read my book. Was it volume? Yeah, it was volume 4, wasn't it? No, it was volume 5. Or chapter 5 volume.
So, knowing that this character was named the Prince, judge me or judge me not, when I was reading that character in my voice, because I feel like with the way this government's acting, it's akin to the Fire Nation. I had Dante Bosco, Zuko's voice running through my head when I was reading the dialogue for the Prince.
Was he inspired by that? Not at all. Are you wrong for that? Not at all.
Well, we've joked about it, but now every time I'm reading Bang, I hear Florence Pugh's voice coming through Bang.
Because since I've talked about him quickly,
and I hear Wendy Lee's voice coming through another character.
So the Prince's full name is Safararami Fedra VII. Do I know how to say any of that? Heck no. Why did I name him after a bunch of German and some random stuff? He is, so his look is based off of 100% 60s old fantasy designs, especially because they used to rock Speedos and helmets. That helmet is 100% Frank Frazetta. That gauntlet is an arm from like a gladiator, stuff like that. Now, where did his name come from? His name is a mixture of Brian Stelfreeze and my friend Sadiq. Sadiq's last name is Safir. Aha, that's how we got the first name. But now you're looking, it's like, well, where's the Stelfreeze? Stelfreeze is German. So it's the kind of thing I was like, hey, let me name this part after one of my friends and then take this other part for my mentor / friend and give it to him. And that's the other thing, too, because when people are like, hey, do you base a character off of someone? This is the most I'll do it because you don't want to be like, all right, let me make a main character off of Steven. Later on, Steven eats a puppy. Or even real Steven might go, how dare you? I wouldn't eat a puppy. It's like, yeah, but you fictional, you ate that puppy. It's easier sometimes to be like, it's not based, not based off anyone I know personally.
I'm basically the Michael Cera, and this is the end in anyone's story. Just admit that. Torsen says, I feel Bang isn't one of those stories that can be spoiled because the journey is the fun part. Rereading it doesn't take away from the enjoyment. To which I responded, like One Piece. He agrees. He says, my grandpa was called Gunter. No H, though.
I might have added the H, because if you look at like Ed Mod, it's literally Edward, and I took the W and just turned it around to an M to make it more fantasy. So sometimes you add an extra letter to something just to make it sound fancier. But here's another character, just speaking pure motivations. So we got the Empire, and we got, is it the Baron? I believe it's the Baron. Jerry. Anyway, fun fact about me, I can never remember people's names or titles, so I have to constantly reread this at times to be like, that's who it is. But this guy is 100% based off of David Bowie, even to the point of, with his name being Jared or whatever, close to the whole Goblin King. Where were you? There you are, Jared. So he's one of our main bads, the Black Suns. To me, he's an inferior complex because he's the younger brother, so he doesn't have the glory of being the emperor, but he doesn't want to govern. So it's like technically his job now is to like strengthen this area they just conquered, build it up so they can go on and continue conquering more. That's his job. He doesn't want that job. What he wants to do is play war. So it's the kind of thing you can tell, like, he's got this grandiose speech, and at the very end and I'm just trying to fight the fatigue known as life, as living. So that's his motivation. It's like he's stuck in a mundane job, but he wants to be the rock and roll star. Also, fun fact, is it his first line? Yeah, it is his first line. I gotta resave those. So with him, didn't want to show who he was. It was a slow reveal, but there are more important things than living. Correct, General. Does anyone know where that line comes from? For 500 points, know where that line comes from?
Waiting on the chat.
Oh, chat's slow. Congress, when they were talking about COVID.
See, he draws from real life as well.
I won't lie, there are fun times where, and it's like, that's a fun thing with politics, because I'm like, man, that's a terrible line. That's a terrible thing to say. I'm going to steal it. But anyway, so it's the kind of thing, like I said, it's more about like characters' motivations. Because I won't lie, I have a couple characters here. They're pure evil. They know they're evil. They revel they just soak up that evil. Most characters see themselves as the hero. And it's the kind of thing, it's like, hey, if this wasn't called Bang, if this was called like Red, the dude from the Empire, it would be a much different light. It would be a much different story. Him banishing children would be a good thing. That was the other thing.
It's all about perspective. I've said, and many other fans have said, that if you were to follow a series like The Walking Dead from Negan's perspective from the beginning, then right, Rick and his crew would be the villains. But because we started with Rick, Negan's the bad guy throughout most of it.
Well, I think the other thing, and maybe it's like this was me, lack of a writer, I don't think a lot of people realize where it's like when I said they're banished, they're supposed to be dead. Like, these are kids from a village. Like, there's a good chance they would have gotten bored. Like, especially, let's be honest, if Bang wasn't around, Eddie would have been gone.
Oh, 100%. No survival skills whatsoever.
The other thing, though, with Eddie's a glass cannon because he's got more, like, magical power-wise, he can do stuff that the others can't. But he doesn't know how to control it, so he's definitely a glass cannon. then we end on so like with this one, kind of going back to this, kind of swoop, and I feel like it's little thoughts of this where I'm like, okay, what if the top skin's a little thicker, but like this part right here, like the underbelly, is a little softer. So it's this cut right here that makes him go like whoop. And then
Torsen wants to add more work to your plate. He says,
right.
Do one issue from Red's perspective, portraying him as he sees himself, such as an annual issue.
Torsen's trying to add more work, huh?
Well, I've had ideas as well. If you are up for it and this continues to be successful, you could do origin specials for any of the characters. And if you were to reveal the father, it could be Omar from Near Mint Condition.
Oh, hell no. It's two things. Like one,
Omar, you are the father.
Honestly, like the dad's not important. I just want to make that one clear because it's like it's not a big mystery. It's like he died in war. He's a soldier.
And the story's not focused on him. So why go backwards in that way?
But what I love is not to call someone out, Torsen. Not to be like, man, maybe a red focus issue would be important. And actually, yeah. So I'm skipping some pages here. Yeah, I'll skip that one. But so 15 goes into Jareth introducing Red into the group. Then goes into the Lizard. So yeah, I foresee a lot more with Red. I got plans with Red.
Now, again, going back to Dragon Ball, was he named Red to have anything to do with Commander Red?
You are correct.
But in this case, we probably shouldn't expect him wishing for what Red wished for in Dragon Ball.
No, it was one of the things, like, one of the hardest things about writing is always coming up with names. Because it's like, because the other thing is too, and I get why. I honestly get why. People, like Kakarot, like with Dragon Ball, like all the Saiyans being named after vegetables, like, bloomers, blah, blah, blah. One, Toriyama had a terrible memory. Two, it's an easy way to pull stuff out. Like, and since you keep bringing up One Piece, what's interesting was out of the new generation, Kid was supposed to be the new like favorite, but then the audience turned out to love Law. So all of a sudden he's like, I'll put Law in where I was planning on putting Kid in. Because
it's fascinating that it went down that route because you can really see Oda pushing in a certain direction.
And I think the thing is, it's easy to kind of go like, oh, everything's planned. It's like, it's not. And usually what it is it's like I said, it's leaving enough threads where you can kind of go, oh yeah, let me go back and work this one out. Because yeah, like chapter 15, it's the only one without Bang in it. Like she does not appear at all in this chapter, her or the gang. And I the reason I made this chapter, speaking of Near Mint, it's because lovely Melanie was like, who's Jareth? I'm like, oh yeah. Well, if you can't remember, maybe the average person can't, so let's reintroduce him. But yeah, I'll say this. I don't see me doing annuals or anything like that. Because it's like, do I see myself doing chapters where it's like, hey, we might explore more of this character? 1,000%. That's definitely going to happen. But it's like, it's more... One thing with Bang is like every chapter will be like 24 pages. There's certain things that are definitely in stone. So it's like that won't change. Any other questions, Torsen? Do you have any other questions?
While we wait for the chat, do you see this as something akin to, say, Tiny Onion, Something is Killing the Children, where he had the expectation that, oh, I'll be lucky to get 6 issues out of this. And that expanded. So now every once in a while, he goes back to reveal something about a character or an event's past that has an effect on the future of the story? Do you see yourself possibly integrating that strategy at some point?
You have any other questions? Any other questions? Anything?
Usually what that means from a creator, folks, is that you're close and they can't say a damn thing without spoiling things.
I didn't hear any. I don't know what you're talking about. I got plans, and it's like I said, because I've said this before. Like when I started like chapter 1, I didn't really have a lot of stuff in mind. So some of it's been like me figuring stuff out in the future. Some of it's like, especially for the longest time, I had to figure out characters' motivations. Because like Jake loves this analogy. Bang is Bugs Bunny. She won't start a fight, but she'll always end a fight. Yasmin is Daffy's, like she'll always start a fight. So it's the kind of thing. Yeah, there are I've tried to put in some mysteries that it's like, hey, and that's like I said, that's some of the fun of working on comics. It's like, hey, here's something I know you don't know, na boo boo, like, because it's like I know everything important in this world. You all don't.
It's what makes it fun as a reader, though, and to be able to go back and reread with a different perspective. I've reread One Piece several times, and I'm not bored. Granted, it takes time, and I've done the same thing with Bang. That chapter in the cave, the tunnel that you share, I love, because the first time I'm reading, I'm concerned about the characters, but having gotten past that, knowing that they may, or I'm not spoiling anything, may not make it out whole, I get to examine things from a deeper perspective. So that shot that you talk about where that sword needs to be kicked and utilized, just imagining the amount of force it takes to penetrate that skin on that creature with the sword, that's exciting to me from a different perspective after having read it the first time.
And because here's the thing, no one brings up this moment. Chapter 4. What's that about? You don't know. I know.
I love secrets. I'm excited to find out.
Well, and here's the other fun thing, because like actually, yeah, it was chapter 4. I am not a master of this because Brian Stelfreeze is, and I hate him for it. Stelfreeze loves to put in like metaphorical hints. So like he'll have a character like wear a spider dress, and it turns out later she set a trap. So it's like, oh, that dress indicates like there's a spider on her. She's laying a trap like a web. I'm not the best at that. I wish I was. But I like to I like to do my own little thing. Yeah, it was page 9. Okay. And like one little trick I've done. Remember my goblins?
Love your goblins.
Remember my goblins?
So cool.
There's a dwarf with a goblin. Now, granted, you can't see it, so that one's not fair, because I think did it a couple times. That's also the pain of doing comics at times, because it's like, man, I'll draw something cool, and then it's like, oh, there it is. Huh. Yeah, I figured out that one got covered. So I was like, all right, let's fix this. But yeah, remember my goblins? It's technically the first time you see one, but no one points that out.
I love the way you designed them. They're so fun.
There were technically more gremlins, but it's once again, because it's like everyone was doing the like green skin, like little goofy, especially what's crazy is everyone wants to do 40K, but they want to get away with not doing 40K. Also, Torsten, no other questions. Disappointed in literature and pictures.
Well,
yeah, and
folks out there, this is a great inside look for what it takes to be a creator-owned comic publisher. It gives you an in-depth look at the emotion, the effort that goes into it, and hopefully those of you out there who didn't before have an understanding of why with independent publishers it can take a little while to get that next chapter, have a better understanding. Anything worth having in life is worth the wait, and each chapter of Bang Ballad of the Tiger is well worth having. Now, if I could teach myself to feel the same way about Brian K. Vaughan's saga, I would, but Josh isn't the kind of person to make the same promises that Vaughn does.
well, and I think the other problem with Saga had, which is kind of crazy, when it came out, there was nothing like it. It inspired a bunch of stuff. Then it took so long, it feels cliche because there's other stuff that's come and gone that took inspiration from it. So that is the hard thing where it's like, how do you keep things fresh and new?
Agreed. And for the record to Mr. Vaughn and Miss Staples, I understand that you need time to be creative and process, but to have fans wait from July 2018 till January 2022 with no new content, and then you're barely getting 6 issues a year when you had promised that hiatus would be for creating content, it's a bitter pill to swallow. Whereas something like this, where you have an understanding that the creator needs that time, that they have a day job and they need to have those thoughts percolate, there's a greater appreciation and a better perspective for the work. Torsen also wants an OHC of Unprofessional. I would love that. Could we see a Kickstarter for Unprofessional in the future?
Yeah, because it's the kind of thing, getting one Kickstarter, like we're still going on that. Speaking of which, it's been an hour since I've hit refresh. This feels odd. Damn yous. Okay. So with let's talk about Unpro a little bit. Because Torsen enjoys that book. And I was actually a little surprised to hear it was Bunk's favorite. I was like, interesting.
Perhaps Bunkmaster B should have you on to speak about Unprofessional.
Bunkmaster B doesn't have a channel. Bunkmaster B goes to other channels. He's a slacker. So yeah, because the thing with Unpro, part of me is like, do I try to do? Ooh, they're trying to open too many at once. Do I try to do a full-on trade paperback? Because I would love to do an OHC, but I'm not there yet. Or it's like, do I do an issue do I do an issue at a time, or just because part of me feels like it would just be easier to release it all under one. Yeah, because I mean, like, look at the layers. Look at all this BS I got. So many layers.
You set yourself up for success, but a lot of effort with it.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Says a great story never gets old. If you base your stuff off of novelty, it's gonna fade. And that should be a quote for one of your volumes. That is beautiful, Torsen. He says Bunk is a mercenary, and he's also warning you not to call quality BS.
Well, so this will give you some insight into like how artists talks. Like, one, if an artist curses you out, you've done your job. Like, if I drop an F-bomb on you, you're doing your job. But when I say like BS, it's more like, hey, was there an easier way to do this? Is there a better way? Is there a better way to make a better mousetrap out of this? Because each layer takes time.
Work smarter, not harder.
Yeah, because the flats to the shadows, like those are 2 different books. Like, yeah, so Past Me put a lot of effort into this. Also, Is it this panel? Yeah, it is this panel. So here is another fun fact, because I've talked about, like, in horror movies, they'll often have like a movie poster ripped. So if we're in Friday the 13th, they'll have a Nightmare on Elm Street poster like ripped in half or something. It's like, oh, that one's fake, but we're the real show. So I was like, how do I call out Star Wars without calling out Star Wars? Oh yeah, I worried about being strangled by my own bra in a pool of moonlight. That is a very famous Carrie Fisher quote about her as Princess Leia, because apparently Princess Leia couldn't wear a bra because there was no gravity, and Lucas was worried about that, and that was her response.
Lucas at one point tried to convince her that they didn't wear panties in space.
You can't blame the guy, but at the same time, it's like, really?
No, but one thing I loved about Carrie Fisher was that she was not one to pull any punches.
Oh, no.
Never got her autograph, but did see her and exchange a few words at New York Comic Con in 2012. This was before she had, as she put it, gotten back into younger shape for The Force Awakens. And she was just hilarious, dropping F-bombs every time she was telling a story about her time on set, especially with Return of the Jedi, with, as she said, that fucking metal bikini.
Oh, I can only imagine that thing clipping in. So, fun fact, what's interesting too is, like, there's certain things that are just hard to do. Liquid, especially like a blood, is one of them, because it's like, it's easy to make it like too thick, but it's like, it's like, how do you make it transparent, move? So this is my sci-fi comic. Basically, these two mercenaries find this job that's a little too good to be true, that's babysitting this guy, the prince, the other prince. But the fun fact is, the prince attaches to our hero. The problem is, every time he gets scared, she hallucinates.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
Well, now I have more to look forward to. Was that gentleman wearing the yellow getting punched there in any way, shape, or form? I'm just saying, because of the coloring. Was that meant to be inspired by the Monarch in any way?
No, what it was though, so these end up being like, how to put this? They're definitely a gang, but it's like, I thought it would be interesting was, like, these two act tough, but they look goofy. Like, I wouldn't say they were like inspired by the Monarch, but more the henchmen, like more of that mentality, where it's like, here's these two goofy characters trying to look tough in these like just blatant uniforms.
21 and 24.
Oh, that's weird.
Two of the best characters in fiction in the last 20 years. Torsen says 4 layers just for the blood. You can turn this into either an 11 plus, 16 plus, or an 18 plus version. So what I think he's suggesting is you release a standard retailer version and then your own version of the Red Band comics that Marvel's releasing for that extra dough.
The problem is, to my mother's chagrin, she wishes I drew like nice, happy comics. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't see an 11 plus version of this. Like, that's a lot of blood.
Kids these days get into all kinds of trouble. I'm honestly surprised that when Sesame Street, and granted, I'm grateful it stayed the same, but I'm surprised that when Sesame Street was on HBO Max, they didn't have a more mature version. Like, it's not just Sesame Street, it's HBO.
It's a fun fact, because I wonder if Torsen picked this up or not. I'm going to have to start closing some stuff down. Yeah, you can tell the difference between Bang and on Pro, because, like, I could open up all the pages I want for Unpro, no problem. Bang is like, what are we doing here? This is exciting.
It is.
Like
unwrapping a present.
Come on. Yeah. The only problem with Clip, it doesn't like. See that character there?
I do.
Was a panel. See that character there?
Ooh.
Same guy. He's a character from my Scotty Odyssey, John Santo.
That's awesome.
So yeah, that's the other fun thing about being independent. It's like, I'm going to reference myself because why not?
Because you can.
Unpro, I do love, Unpro's a lot more work, but I do love the end result. And it's just, I think the thing with, like I said, the thing with Bang, it's a lot easier to get in and get out. You get ideas done, so it's a lot more, going in there. Especially because, with Unpro, because this is, a futuristic cyber. So I was like, okay, what's a BS thing that's normal to them, but, we would, because it's okay, identity theft is normal to us. But if we went back 200 years, that sounds like witchcraft. What are you talking about? So it's okay, if I'm doing a futuristic thing, what's a small BS thing that's normal to them, but would just be nope, we're out. And I thought, I'm okay, instead of having a car booted, the way you park it, it gets locked in, so you have to pay to leave. That's how you handle a ticket here.
Torsen says, so
Yep.
issue 5 will wrap up the first Unpro story arc. What's the release date of issue 5?
So, yeah, because the way Unpro is more like Hellboy, where it's, I want to do a bunch of mini series. I got pretty much 2 is pretty much, I need to write it out. It's got, it's pretty much well planned out, thought out. I haven't written it out. But, release date, that is a good question because let's do this. Hey, are you seeing previews of stuff that I usually only show my Patreon? Yes, you are. Now,
Link to the Patreon in the comments, folks.
Now here's the fun. Let's open up JPEGs. Those are smaller. So here's the fun thing with Unpro. I got 20 pages of issue 5 so far done.
Holy buckets.
Now, usually I do 22 pages of cover and then some other extra stuff, right? Unpro, though, this was my idea because I'm I'm going to be cheeky. I'm going to be clever. Screw the industry. Yeah, because issue 5 is 26 pages. Whereas I believe it's... So the reason...
James says, show us everything. Now, I'm hoping he means your work, but it's James, so it could go any way. You have to be specific, James.
But the reason I did 26 pages on Unpro, it was 2 things. 1, it gave me a little bit more. It's the climax. It's give me a little bit more room for fun. 2, I noticed with the industry, we put so much focus on issue 1. And I'm you know what? It might cost me a little bit more, but if I add a couple more pages at the very last, the idea was, I was hoping to get picked up by Image or something. Because then the idea is hey, all of a sudden it's oh yeah, issue 5 of this has more pages. That would be an easy story topic for all these sites to cover. Because it's oh, they're offering more pages. And you are going to get X amount more eyes on it.
Well, it all happens in its own time. I truly believe that. I've mentioned him in passing before. One of the people I know within the industry, his name is Mike Hawthorne, and he did work as far back as the mid to late 90s. He had a self-published book called Hysteria. Nothing to do with the Kids WB cartoon, by the way.
Oh, man.
Though that would be amazing. But he did work for Beckett, yes, the company that released the price guide, they also released comics for a little while. And it took him a long time before his big corporate gig with Deadpool. And now the majority of what he seems to do is doing just what Josh does in the independent world. Heck, most of his stuff isn't even published here anymore. It's published in Europe because he took such a liking to the style of comics they do over there. And I can't say I blame him, because they have a different style of storytelling for sure.
So, since we're down this rabbit hole, like, this is going to be like a on-dog stream, but here's some BS that no one asked about, but I'll talk about. One, no, I hear you. Especially like this year is just a rough year for the industry with Diamond, like it's just been a rough year for the industry. But one, I can't just draw a normal helicopter. I have to apparently do gold inlay because that's normal. Another fun fact though. So with Unpro, it's a futuristic, like there's alien, clearly there's aliens because it's one of the main characters. I thought it'd be kind of cool with one. All cyberpunk is usually based off of Asian architecture. I went with more European one for this. But then I was like, what if... Bye, Torsen. What if we change it up a little bit? So I thought about, it's like, what if this is like an old ancient civilization, but they were all lizard people?
I love it.
Because, yeah, it's like French design with the lizard, with just some lizards.
You said the F word.
French?
Yes.
Some freedom designs.
Just to running gag people that I have with Ryan in the Near Mint Discord. I love the design, and it seems to take a lot of effort to capture the mystique that goes along with something reptilian.
Well, it's also because the other thing with Unpro, since it's like her hallucinating, no two panels are the same. Because that's literally paper cutout.
Don't do drugs, kids, unless that drug is life. Then get as high as you want. Or Josh's artwork, you can snort that right into your eye holes.
Yeah, look at who does that? That's just ridiculous.
If by ridiculous you mean ridiculously awesome.
So yeah, it's the kind of thing. It's kind of crazy because there's like, Bang would not be the same without Unpro, and I can tell you this, like, Unpro is definitely going to be different, like, because of Bang.
Is it safe to assume that the two complement each other? That, say, because you game as well, with the way NetherRealm Studios has functioned for the last decade, they have utilized the Injustice games as a way to test their technology and bring back to Mortal Kombat. Would you say that either Unprofessional or Bang kind of fits that criteria, that whatever you're testing out and sort of mastering on one helps you be more successful with the other?
Oh, 100%. Because there's like, so one thing with Bang I discovered, because working, like, I do all my comics digitally. I was taught traditionally, but doing these things digitally, I used to pick like random numbers, like out of the ether. But with Bang, I'm like, okay, I can either do 75, 50, or 25%. Rarely, once in a while, I'll do like a 10%, but that's a rare, like, that's me consciously breaking it. But I notice I take that to all my coloring now, especially because it's easier to be like, okay, and truthfully, it's like I end up going to 50% like most of the time. That's just like a quick rule there. There are certain things where it's like, well, and it's also with working with, the thing with anything, you do enough, like the thing with comics, it all comes down to line and time. Because if you do enough lines, enough time, you're going to get better. So just the act of like doing so many pages of Bang. Because that's the other thing. It's like, oh, I can cut some like corners. And so it's figuring stuff out. Man, I forgot how crazy this book is. Fun fact, there's Method Man.
It's another thing you can do in creator-owned books is put whoever you want in there.
Also, too, a little moment with this character. So this is like the big bad, the rich guy, the guy in charge. Everyone always draws either like a wine glass or a pilsner, or or not pilsner, like a whiskey glass. And I was like, well, wait a minute, no one draws like a pilsner like for beer, like when they're celebrating. So I'm like, you know what? It's still because my mother gave me some of the hand crystals of those, which are very nice. She'll be proud of that. But it's the kind of thing I'm like, you know what? What if he's celebrating? Because it's a fancy glass, but it's slightly different than what you usually see. And sometimes that makes the difference in a book where it's like, hey, let's just change like one or two little aspects, even though it tells the characters the same.
It gives the book even more personality.
And I think because when we talk about detail, because it's like, those bottle, like there's more background there than most of Bang. Also, fun fact, this bar, Desperado, and that is what's his face? Danny Trejo as a robot.
So cool.
Man, I forgot I drew all these bottles. That's the other thing. You know what? Like the body doesn't remember pain. Like you don't remember like how much something hurts. You end up forgetting how much you draw at times where you're like, oh yeah, that was me drawing those, not so bad. Coloring those, that was the pain. Because actually, don't save. Yeah, don't save any of these. I just want to take a quick look at that. Yeah, because we should probably ask. I don't know how long you want to go for, but
well, let's go for. We still have a couple people watching. Let's go for say another 5 minutes and take this for a spin.
Wow, look at all these layers.
Holy crap, Josh.
Right?
Holy crap.
That's for her. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Oh yeah, the extra rendering. Okay, so yeah, here's the flat. Man, this is gonna be actually a good example. So here's the flats. Yeah, like I said, color. It was coloring and shadow. Because let's look at past Josh True Pain. Did I only do? No, I didn't do one layer. Yeah, I didn't do one layer of shadows. I'm like, there's no way. Fun fact. So I cut that in. Okay, so I did two. What did I do with that? Often I'll use this hot pink just to cut, just to select stuff.
That looks slick like that. That sort of style is one of the reasons. Avert your eyes, children. That kind of work is why I picked up this bad boy right here.
That little pink is nice with the gray, and I love her work. But yeah, it's like I said, the thing with Unpro, it's doing all the shadow work. Yeah, because oh my gosh, what were you, Josh? What was wrong with you? Why this book takes forever. And here's the other thing where I'm just insane. I can't do stormtroopers. I would be smart if I would do stormtroopers. What I mean by that, the same costume over and over again. Let's look at these bottles. There's a dragon, there's a skull, like big robot. Like there's different there's similarities, but there's different patterns on these things. Dead monkey, why not?
Oh, look, there's a bottle of Bang brand bourbon in the background.
Wait a minute, where?
I'm just kidding.
No,
that would be so cool, though.
No, because this is way before Bang, so it's like I was kind of hoping you actually saw something. So it's like, oh, maybe that was.
No, that would be so cool if just a sly little hint.
And it's the kind of thing. There's certain things where it's like, yeah, because like I don't have that dragon. Like you can kind of get away with some background stuff. It's like you don't have to be 100% like draw it the same. You know, it's like Some artists will. I will not draw it over and over again.
No, but I think that brings up another great point. I'm not saying you were trying to make this point, but I think that shows a significant difference in what you can do with a creator-owned book and what you can do with a corporate comic. With corporate, more often than not, you have a deadline. So something may fall to the wayside. It could be your line work or your shading, your blacks on a character or during a fight sequence, or it, as I've seen several times, it can be the lack of detail in a background. It gets the point across, but with a creator-owned comic, you have the patience and, more importantly, the ability to, if you want to, put the detail and the focus where you want it to be.
Also, yeah, because the thing is, you bring up a good point. Because I wasn't part of this conversation. It was Stelfreeze and Jason Pearson. Pearson was talking about it's like the only currency in comics is time, because you have a deadline you have to meet. So it's the kind of thing. It's like, cool, if I have this big double page spread, I got to take out from other places. And you might do like talking heads, less background. That's what I like with Bang there. Like I said, I point out, I'm like, there's triangles here because that's more, I'm like, I want to emphasize the action, but I want some background elements so they pop a little bit more. So it's just not a flat. And like I said, you want to make things look cool, add a box behind it. Because literally, like this one here, that's literally like I'm cutting him in a box because he's dark, and I'm putting her like in a black box so her chin pops out. So yeah, sometimes you can do something simple. Also, the other thing, especially with on Pro, I would do this, like this scene here is like greens and yellows. So that's why you get this like darker kind of tint to it. So like often picking it's like, hey, this scene, everything's going to be blue. This scene, everything's going to be yellow. Like stuff like that helps too. Usually with Unpro or with Bang, it's like, hey, this is set in the desert. It's going to be warmer. Hey, this is set in like a forest. It's going to be a little cooler. Stuff like that.
I know you said sometimes you wish you could change the color palette with Bang, but looking at Bang and comparing it to Unprofessional, the use of the different color palettes and capabilities really help relay what kind of stories you're sharing. The greens especially help relate it to sci-fi, because especially with certain pieces of Star Trek, the original series, and the Next Generation, those greens help relate it to sci-fi. Whereas with Bang, you're kind of on a mystical adventure, not to draw it back to Dragon Ball again. And the colors really help draw you into that world where magic and mysticism may coexist alongside the kung fu action.
Well, you know what I think it is more? Bang is a TV show. Unpro is a movie. Because it's like a simpler plot, like only 5 issues. The other thing I think with the other thing I like with Bang, you by setting certain rules, you get into a certain rhythm and it's quicker and easier to read, because it's like, hey, because in your mind it's like, hey, I know she's in a green forest, but we're going to use blues. Like blues here will indicate that. Like there's certain things you kind of get into a pattern with. So and I think too, I do think like a limited color palette, usually you read faster and it forces you to make choices. So yeah, there are times where I'm like, I wish I had this green. I got greens. I make cactus and stuff like that. So I can post, I can figure out ways around. It's how do you get around it?
James says, Josh, I know you've been talking for a while, but Bang is a comic right now, not a TV series.
Man, I'm not a mod. Ban this man. How is James not a mod?
Well, this is my first live stream, so I would have to learn how to do that.
Sure. Look, I don't care who you are. If you're watching this in the future, if you want to be a professional in this industry, James is a mod. Like that, if I don't see a blue wrench to him, I have questions. Now that he's not a mod, let's ban him, then make him a mod. No, I mean in general, smartass. Also, another fun rule with Unpro.
That was directed at you, James, not me.
Right? Oh no, I'll tell James. He knows. The other fun thing with Unpro though, I swear like a sailor often, and I have no problem with it. But with Unpro, it's like, well, just dropping like a fuck here. It's like, it doesn't have the same impact. I love Scott Pilgrim the movie, especially the way they handle cursing in that.
Amen.
Because in some ways, I'm like, that is more brilliant than just a normal like fuck. So with Unpro, these are, man, I forgot how fun some of these pages were. Because yeah, honestly, oh my god, that's not too bad, but still, that is 100% Pennywise from the novel It.
From it, yeah, it looks great. So is the plan, once Unprofessional is completed, to put together some form of collected edition, be it in the wonderful digest size that these, let me grab them, Bang books are, or something more traditional like this book here?
Unpro is done in ye old fashioned comic book size. Oh yeah, look at those, pixels. So 10 by 44, and so here's the other fun fact: I do all my stuff in 600 DPI dots per inch. Standard print is 300 dots per inch or DPI. So if I want to make I can technically double the size by cutting the DPI down to 300. So it's like technically I can make an artist edition.
Torsen, when you're watching this later, after filling your belly, you can fill your heart with the potential for an artist edition.
Wow.
That was not breaking news.
Wow. Past Josh had some balls on. Wow. I guess that's not much, but still, that's a lot. Yeah, because I guess that's the beauty of colors. And I thought there's more here. I mean, granted, there's that background, but still, that's about average. Huh. Ugh. But yeah. So no, it's the kind of thing we'll see. And the reason I did Bang at these size, and I feel like, I'll be honest, I feel like not everyone loves these size, but I actually love these sizes collection, because this is to me, this is like the floppies of these things. Yes, eventually I want to get to a bigger one and fade these out. But I feel like, especially, I don't know, who knows, like in a perfect world, 10 years, 20 years, yeah, we have a nice big collection, but it's like, there's something nice that's like, hey, this is 100% self-published. This is something that's like, because I remember talking to a professional. It's like, you want to make a bigger size for stores because they hate the small books. I'm like, no, I get it, 100%. But for me as an artist, especially paying out of pocket, this is what I can like. This was the best of both worlds, where it's like, hey, for the price and for how much more you get.
Well, not just that, but whereas they may be looking at it from an American comic perspective, it's the perfect size for people who have become accustomed to, not only here in the United States, but internationally, for anyone who collects manga in the tankobon form. And if they want to get into it with the American style comics, one of the things that made Marvel very successful in the 2000s with collected editions, yes, they had the standard size trade paperback format at that point, but they were releasing their series Runaways, Spider-Girl, and others in the tankobon size, and they were even placed in, rest in peace, Borders in the manga section. And that helped encourage Marvel, I believe, to expand their purview with the collected edition. So you're you're right. Some places might have an issue, but I think it's the perfect size, especially if you're utilizing it as a way to really whet that appetite for more.
And another fun fact. So like I said, standard print is 300 DPI. These are done at 600, but I print them at 450, so you get a crisper image.
And they do look good too. They look great.
Because that's it's technically I'm not sizing it down by double. I'm sizing it down by like 1, if that makes sense.
Well, it makes perfect sense, and that means that there's still room for expansion should you decide to alternate between different styles of collected edition form.
So, you know what's fun? I forgot Past Josh did this because I'm like, wow, Past Josh went straight from pencils to ink. Past Josh did not do that. And yes, current Josh talks about Past Josh in the third person. I forgot I did this. I used to do thumbnails. So because with Bang, like I don't have editors or anything, I just do everything on my own. I've done like just tire pencils. But yeah, I used to do thumbnails. So I would figure out the colors, go back in, like pencil some stuff out. Because as you can see, like originally this was going to be more of a profile. And I'm like, well, let's do it 3/4 because that makes more sense. Then we go to the inks.
If y'all out there want to understand more of Josh's creative process or even see it like you are on this stream, the man has a Patreon where not only do you get early access to certain materials, you get behind the scenes. And if you eventually do want to see an artist edition or some physical behind the scenes in a collected edition form, Patreon is a good way to show Josh that you enjoy what he's doing, or like Ryan, you can use it to
force me to be
comment and critique Josh's work, to quote unquote crack that whip.
The other cool thing with Unpro, since everything, like I said, was hallucinating, sometimes it's doing small things like this. I don't think, I feel like this panel here, like I'm not saying it's a direct correlation, but it's like, okay, I like this limited palette. And I do think this was like me looking at mangas because it's gray and the reds. So it's like, I feel like this was one of those seeds that started Bang. That doesn't even look, that looks pretty good like that. Also, the other thing with, because the other thing with Unpro, there's a lot more special effects layers.
Which kind of fits in a sci-fi story.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Oh, yeah. Well, and it's also, like I said, it takes more time. Because the other way I work with Unpro, with Bang, like, it sometimes comes back to bite me in the butt or in the ass, I won't lie. But with Unpro, I will separate things by layers. So it's like everything in the foreground, midground, background. So what's nice is it makes coloring a lot easier. Because, like, you remember how I was like, oh, we have random bug? It's like random old woman. I know that's more going to be a value because, hey, wait a minute. Look at that. Look at that. Look at Past Josh coming through. Because like I said, I knew I was going to be more of a background. Look at that.
Are you looking at it now and saying, I drastically underestimated myself? I didn't know what I was doing.
There are certain things I am. There's certain things nowadays, like, because I can tell the perspective's kind of off. I would probably, like, increase this black here to cover more of her coat, which, let's take a look. I would not be surprised. I did not. There's, like, I need to do more of this kind of panels. Because especially it's like, yeah, I have some text, but it's like just the angle and stuff. I like that. So there's certain things that I'm like, Past Josh did good. I should copy that again. Yeah, and here's really one shadow layer. Interesting. Yeah, you can see how like in depth my shadows are because it's like that's what takes a long time.
I don't know what it is as well, but utilizing that pink just adds something to it.
Yeah, it's called I can see that from space. Well, because that's the thing. It's like I just use that hot pink because it's so easy to pull from. And
Yes, and also, if you're looking for someone to partner with, you heard it here. Josh is not afraid to use pink ink. If you need someone to sub in for Sweet Paprika, he's available.
You know what, too? This was. Remember how I said in Unpro or on Bang, I would I use that blue. I think that's where this kind of started with Unpro because it's the same. Like you add some speed lines, it's the same approach I do with Bang.
Oh, so this was the origin story for that.
I think a little. I think it's like I said, it was more the germ. I would say the germ, like that. You get an idea, you try something. It's like I said, it's like, oh, this is a better way to do a mousetrap. But yeah, here are these because this is issue 3. There are those goofballs, and once again, I can't draw a stormtrooper, aka they're all the same gang, but they're all different uniforms. One day I'll draw a stormtrooper, and it will be a magical day.
He's not talking Star Wars.
No, when I say stormtrooper, I just mean like generic same villain, like same costume over and over again. But yeah, it's the kind of thing. I think the other thing is, one way or another, like I am eternally grateful that the Bang got. Technically, it's like it will be funded once we cross the road. Because I would love some more numbers. Let's make number go bigger. But one way or another, I'll always be doing comics because it's what I love to do.
And you're great at it.
Ugh. So any other questions, Steven? Like blood types? I don't know them.
I'm not going to ask about anything that James doesn't already know.
And like, I kind of joke, but I do want to state that like, if someone's trying to get into comics or like any kind of creativity, I think it's easy to get bogged down in like, I need to know exactly how every part of the world works. It's like, no, you need to know like there are times I know 5 steps before the reader where it's like, yeah, this will work. And it's like, hopefully like the more you do, you kind of go like, okay, that kind of works. So let's do this. Let's do that. But there are times, like I said, the best laid plans of Mice and Men, because my current chapter, I'm like, cool, I need to end on this beat. I ran out of pages, so I'm like, well, going to have to do one more issue to land on this beat.
And I think that's wonderful that you have that sort of insight into your own creative process. And again, I think that helps relate your comic even closer to Dragon Ball. Obviously, I never met the man, and unfortunately, he passed away too soon. But all the stories you read about Akira Toriyama, if there was one thing about his storytelling, besides the fact that he wanted to be lazy and just get the product out, he had to think and change on the fly because his editor would pester him time after time to change things, especially during the Android/Cell saga, where the editor was constantly displeased. At least with what you're doing, you're displeased with yourself because you come up with a different idea and you have the freedom to make that change rather than someone telling you to do it outside of your editor, Abby.
And it's the kind of thing too, because like this one, I was looking at like Chinese ink paintings and stuff. I'm like, this would be a fun like kind of cover here. I don't know if I'll ever do this again, but it's like, there are times it's like, hey, let me just pull out a random idea.
Because I was wondering if that was one of your ideas for the cover of Volume 4, honestly, because it really sticks out.
I'm not quite sure. Let's go through these last couple ones. The old magic. That one's definitely Frazetta. That's me just stealing 100% from Frazetta. Yeah, I should. Hey, it might not be a bad idea to pull up. Also, so like old school D&D books used to have this like trim to it. And I know like most likely, next volume I'll do like a full bleed. I do like these. Like I like the looks of this with the different colors. This one, it's always kind of interesting because it's like combining two stories. It's like, all right, how do I tell this? Like, what can you do with this? So I kind of knew. I forget when I had the idea of these two squaring off because I remember making like a quick. I think it was like at Heroes Con or something. Not this year, but maybe last year. Like I had this sketch out for a while. And then it was the kind of thing, it's like, because literally like this Fat Blue line, like I just literally sketched this out and I'm like, I'll come to this later. That's the other thing kind of with Bang. Some of it's on the fly and figuring stuff out. Because like this background, that's literally like a tree stump.
I'll say another chapter cover that really catches my eye is the chapter that will close out volume 3, which for those of you who haven't read the Kickstarter description, each book is 4 chapters. So it will end volume 3 with 12, titled The Honeymoon. Now, what does that refer to? Hell if I know. It's not like I've read it or anything. No, I'm just kidding. You need to read it for yourself.
The courting, the honeymoon, separation, till death do we part.
So cool.
Also, I think this was the first one that wasn't the, because all the other chapters have been like the goblins, this. This was a lot of, this was the first time I did horror, which I'll do again, but there was a lot of fun aspects to this storyline.
And I know you love your characters, but it also seems like in order to make them stronger, you prescribe to the notion that because you love them and want them to be stronger, you, to a certain extent, love to put them through hell.
What are you talking about? I have no, there's certain that like I am not kind to my characters because oh yeah, I'll tease. You know what? This is a tease just for Bunk. We'll see if he watches this. Because Bunk loves to swim in the human misery. He loves that drama. That's if he can wade into tears. It cracks me up because he's like, yeah, I like unprofessionals more because there's more of that. It's like, oh yeah. It's not like it's the same author, but yeah.
Well, there's a reason why all of last year, the #1 book he was pimping out was Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees, which is an incredibly dark take on what would happen if the busy world of Richard Scarry had murder and serial killers.
So I'm gonna be the one guy on the internet. I read it, did not like it.
I'm a Dexter fan, so it was fun, but extremely dark to me. And
I will say this: the hard thing with any serial killer, they're exciting until you know who they are, and then the problem is you got to make that punch big, and you got to get in and out. Because in some ways, like the most well-known one is Hannibal Lecter, like just in pop culture. But what's weird is we met him after he's caught. Like there's not the mystery of him.
Which is why theatrically they went back and showed what constructed him and turned him into the serial killer he eventually was.
I do this because technically the author did that too. Like it's a whole long thing because he went because it's Red Dragon, Silence of the Lamb, Hannibal, and then he went back and did Hannibal Rising.
Mm-hmm.
That said, yeah, you can avoid Hannibal Rising. I'll say this because this is my philosophy too with Bang. I do think at times you don't need to know the whole story. Like, I kind of hate prequels for that. It's like, let's see how we got here. It's like, do we need to? Like,
I mean, Bang, you said, is in her 20s. Her flashback, her origin is basically her conception, and no one needs to see that because, as you said, the father doesn't need to be involved.
When I've showed, like, I've done a flashback to show child her because it's like, hey, it adds to it builds up to this moment. So it's like, yeah, if it works for the story. But I do feel like at times this is a whole another discussion. But it comes down to more like, hey, this is we're making some good money off of this. This is some good money. Can we? What other stories can we do? Do we kill them? Oh, we killed them off. What if we do a prequel? Yeah, we'll do a prequel. People love prequels. Yeah, we'll get that money out of those nerds.
Yeah, Kirkman licensed this through Skybound. It's selling, and he's like, "Hey, Josh, you know how well Before Watchmen did for Watchmen? How about Before Bang? You up for that?"
Well, you know what? Like, it's easy to clown on Kirkman because I think the weird thing with Kirkman, he's that perfect in between because he's independent but he's corporate. Because he's that perfect, like, just insert here, especially good on him with like The Walking Dead, Invincible, getting multiple TV shows. Like I say, he's that perfect middle ground. Mm-hmm. But I do think and once again, there's a whole nother discussion. I'm kind of curious because I feel like with film and television, we're seeing a lot more mergers. We're going to see a lot less ideas because a lot more like giant corporations. I'm kind of curious if all of a sudden, like, some independent stuff becomes more and more desirable because it's like, hey, this is something completely new and different.
I wonder the same thing, and I feel like we kind of start inching our way into that realm. But then, because these are corporations making these products into the adaptations, it doesn't have the same feel that it did in its original form. We've seen, again, going back to Brian K. Vaughan, we've seen Paper Girls, which is great on page. We saw that get canceled after one season on Prime. Why the Last Man? Granted, it's a Vertigo book, which is owned by DC, but same thing. They took the corporate strategy, made changes that were completely unnecessary, and that was canceled after one season. Would I love to see adaptations of certain works? Yes, but do I need adaptations of those works? No, because I can have them play out in my mind the same way I can have them play out in an adaptation. The Walking Dead, good on Kirkman making bucks off of that, being a TV show and a video game franchise, you name it, whatever it is. Good on him, but did it need to be that? I don't think so.
I'll argue this just because that's the fun of the internet. One, you have stuff like Invincible because I feel like the big revelation at the end of season 1, they did better in the show because like that action sequence was insane, especially the train sequence alone. Like,
oh yeah.
But then you got stuff like The Boys, which I think works better as a TV show than a comic. So sometimes, like, it can go either way. Mm-hmm. Now, that said, then you get something like One Piece. I never got, like, into the anime. I've seen some of the movies. I do enjoy those. But it's just kind of like, to me, it's like manga only. The live action, I thought the live action did the job it was supposed to do, where it's like, hey, here's a sampling. If you want to really get into it, try the manga or the anime.
Amen. And I know people complain about Netflix, Josh. There's a lot to complain about, but that's what we do sometimes as a fandom. I think one thing that Netflix did right with One Piece as opposed to Avatar was include the creator every step of the way and promote that creator's work as opposed to saying our adaptation is everything. This is where you need to be in order to enjoy One Piece. Instead, it got you hungry to go back and read the manga.
Well, and especially like Invincible, same thing, because I believe Kirkman wrote those episodes I just alluded to. Also, because I remember, like, with One Piece, they ask Oda, it's like, hey, does this world have electricity? And all of a sudden, he's like, that's a problem I've never had to deal with in the manga. Let me think about it. Because they're talked about, it's like, if it doesn't have electricity, everything's by candlelight, so it's going to have a different look. You're drawing comics, you don't really think about it. It's just like day or night. It's like, ooh, especially in a black and white comic, you're like, And yeah, he determined, it's like, you know what? They have all these X amount of things. It would make sense that they had electricity. And that's kind of goes back to before. I'm like, you don't need to know all the world building. Oda didn't know he had electricity after over a decade of doing this.
No, but I love those discussions because it shows the right kind of fan interaction. And for the record, not that Kirkman's ever going to watch this, but I use Kirkman as an example because he is someone who started off quite independent. I mean, he had to outright lie to Image, to his publisher, in order to get The Walking Dead off the ground, because he was supposed to reveal that aliens were responsible for the virus. He took that, found success, and has been able to build, maybe not the right word, but I'm going to use it anyway, an empire that he is not only used to support himself, but has used to mentor and bring other creators into the fold to show them the support that I know for a fact he would have loved to have had a little more of in his creative infancy. The man knows how to market, and the man knows how to kiss Brian Michael Bendis, because I witnessed that at a Baltimore Comic-Con panel where it was independent versus corporate. Picked him up because Bendis is short as hell, kissed him dead on the lips, and because of that, the creator owned One. This man owns the license to Transformers and G.I. Joe because of how he had to fight and persevere. Well, and that's amazing.
I think it's two things. It's like there's two Kirkmans. There's like writer, indie creator Kirkman, then there's business Kirkman. Mm-hmm. And I think it's easy to hate, and I understand, like, a lot of people, it's easy to hate like creator Kirkman. And the problem is you cannot deny the success of business Kirkman, and because of that success, that allows creative Kirkman to kind of continue on and on and on. And I think the other thing with like any adaptations, well, because like Mandalorian, okay, Favreau's about, like, he was the age that grew up with Star Wars. Like, he remembers before Star Wars and then after Star Wars. But he also knew, like, okay, Lucas was a big fan of like samurai films and westerns. So when I'm making the show, let's go back to the source. It's like, is he the original creator? No. But he knows like enough of the sort to go back to that well. It's like, okay, I'm not going to pull from the exact same well, but I'm going to pull like slightly different to make it a little bit more interesting. Hey, Dorson's back.
Yeah. And the way that they've been able to do it by utilizing not only what came before in Star Wars, but in other media, has, at least up until season 2 of The Mandalorian ended, it worked quite well. Incorporating elements and the story of Lone Wolf and Cub worked really well for it.
Well, and like Lone Wolf and Cub, because it's the kind of thing, it's been parodied like by everything. Jimbo has Lone Wolf and Cub, like, and it's one of those, it's a great archetype because it's like, oh man, hardened killer, innocent child. It's just a great, like, it's a universal concept where it's like, oh, okay, it doesn't take much explaining. And in some ways, it's kind of weird because you don't see this as much. Like back in Ye Olde Day, it was like, man, this is a great concept. We're just going to take this concept and change a couple things and make it our own. Because like a lot of Westerns were like, wow, these samurai films are good. What if we had changed a little bit of hats? Aha. Because nowadays, like we're so like the cool thing is about being global, you get to enjoy media from like around the world. The problem is people can't just steal from other medium and go ha ha ha.
Now, obviously, with Bang and Eddie, you don't have that lone wolf and cub relationship. But do you believe that she's the cub in this scenario and she has found her mentor, her lone wolf?
No, I feel like no. Because I feel like it's a couple things. One, Bang already knew how to fight because technically Bang beat Yasmin like easy in a fight. So it's like I wouldn't say like that was their mentor. I think it's just more. These are three like Bang feels guilty for getting Ed kicked out, just for picking up the hat, and it's one of those things. Who knew that like such a small like well, actually. In hindsight, that little action seems to play out quite well, but I feel like Bang feels responsible for Eddie. Yasmin, we'll see why, but I feel like she's just more like, hey, these are two people I can hang. Like I've been out in the world for a while. These are just two people I can hang out with.
I like that. So, in essence, she's the and I'm not trying to get flack
She's
for
the
this.
baby. Look, she's the babysitter. She's literally the babysitter.
So I was going to compare Eddie to Kid Goku from Dragon Ball, Bang to Bulma, and
no,
Yasmin to Yamcha.
Okay. First, you know what? This is the place to do this. Yamcha was character assassinated by Toriyama, and the internet is wrong.
He was one of the strongest characters for a while, and Toriyama nerfed him himself.
No, it's not that he nerfed him, and this is a common trope in all, especially in action shows. It's like, how do you show someone stronger? Oh, they just took down the guy So in the tournament arc, the problem is they kept doing it for Yamcha, and especially in the US, we didn't see Dragon Ball, we saw Dragon Ball Z, and him like, but it's like
getting Cyberman.
And the thing is, like, it's easy, like, ha ha ha, Yamcha. It's like Yamcha could kill any of y'all. Like anyone on the internet, it's like, ha ha ha, Yamcha. It's like that man could Wolfgang Fist can do the work.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I love Mr. Satan. I think he is a boon to that franchise, but he's got nothing on Yamcha. Hell, he's got nothing on his own daughter. And people like to mock Krillin. First of all, Krillin is stated several times to be the strongest human, and through his heroic actions, he wound up with one of the most desirable mates in the series.
I'm going to give you my Dragon Ball Z hot take. Do you know who I think ruined I love the franchise, but like what caused the downfall of Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball? Which character caused that?
Goku?
No. I'll give you another
It wasn't
guess.
Launch because Toriyama outright admitted he forgot about Launch.
You're going to think I'm crazy until I lay out my theory. Puar ruined it.
I'm listening.
Yeah. So before Puar, we introduced to Goku, very strong, very unique. Introduced to Bulma, very smart, intelligent, had her own thing.
Very horny.
Yeah, Master Roshi going through the list. Then we have Oolong, who can transform. He's the only one who can transform. Then we meet Puar, who can also transform. Is it a big
Oolong?
Is it a big deal? Not really. Is it more just for a couple gags and stuff? 100%. But it started the bad habit of everyone who gets introduced, everyone then gets the powers. Because Tien's big power was he could fly. No one else could fly. After Tien, everyone else could fly.
That makes sense, and it kind of adds more credibility to what Team
Kamehameha.
4-Star said, in that everything Goku learns, key attack wise, was not his.
Yeah.
He may have mastered it, but everything he learned was from someone else.
And here's the thing, if Goku was that unique ability that could do all that, but everyone else wasn't, that would make the story interesting. Because the problem I think we got into, especially like with the Cell Saga, okay, like everyone's flying around looking for Dr. whatever his name. It's been a while.
Jiraiya.
Yeah. How much more interesting would it be if like only Goku and Tien could fly? Then all of a sudden you would have like Yamcha, who was like the best pilot. He can do something. Bulma could do something. And I think that's the problem, was when everyone could do everything, you didn't need as much of a cast.
When everyone's super, no one is.
Because especially with the Saiyans, like they just got to a point where it's like they were gods. Like Vegeta and Goku, it's like you're doing things that we can't imagine. Now I think Dragon Ball stumbled, because here's the thing too. Toriyama to me is what made Dragon Ball special, like amazing. I try to read Dragon Ball Super and it's like the art, I'm like, it's just not the same. Because I'm not gonna lie, a lot of Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z plots, they're not Shakespeare. They're very basic. But Toriyama's good enough job where it's like, man, this is like I can take simple ingredients. This is amazing. Where, like I said, he kind of stumbled so like One Piece and other stuff could run. Because like One Piece, I guarantee you, he did not know about hockey when he first introduced One Piece.
No.
But it was the kind of thing, it's like, okay, how do I have humans be able to do compete with devil fruits? That was a problem. And he came up with hockey.
And even going before One Piece, even if Toriyama did not credit himself with being inspirational in the early 90s, what was one of the first well-known tributes to Super Saiyan? Supersonic.
Yeah.
Supersonic, right off the bat. If you bought yourself a Sega Genesis, whether you knew it or not, you were getting Dragon Ball in that box alongside your Blue Rodent.
Do you know why we got Super Saiyan?
Because it was a lot easier for Toriyama to do the work without having to ink in that damn black hair every single panel. It was a laziness thing, but you know what? It works. It works.
Man, 'cause I remember as a kid, I went to go get like my haircut. It was the one time I forgot to set the VCR, and it was the one time he actually went Super Saiyan. I luckily got home right after the wrap up of the previous episode, so I didn't miss a thing. But man, it's like that was back in the day where it's like, I don't know if this will play again.
Yeah, I think we started getting, for those of you who are not old enough to remember, all we got originally for Dragon Ball Z, not Dragon Ball, because we got Dragon Ball from the same company that Saban had partnered with, dubbed, and it failed. We got Dragon Ball Z on Toonami. All we got were the first edited from 69 episodes down to 54. We didn't get Super Saiyan until 2 years after, maybe 3, that Dragon Ball Z started airing on Toonami. And by then, Funimation had taken full force over everything with it.
And the other problem is, which it's interesting because, like I said, it had to stumble for a lot of things to run. Because, like with Dragon Ball, it's like, okay, they could outpace the manga. So all of a sudden, it's like, okay, we gotta do fillers. We gotta do like more yelling and shouting. Because, like, you read Dragon Ball Z, those fights go fast. Like, there's not a lot of downtime.
Yeah, there's no 2 weeks worth of episodes from Frieza saying 5 minutes until Namek blows up.
And like it's shonen. They'd still do the like guys talk. Like there's some tropes where you're like, okay, yeah, it's shonen, but yeah.
And there's always going to be, because it adds dramatic effect, that this isn't even my strongest form. That's always going to be a thing.
And I'm curious. By the way, you can get rid of this screen. Just bring us back up. So Ah. I'm kind of curious. Like, is that like a trope in Japanese like, because there's certain things it's like where I would love to know where that trope started from, the whole like multiple forms. Because part of me is like, I wonder if it's like transforming, like disguise, because that's quite common in Asian mythology. It's like, hey, we'll look like one way and then we're actually another way. Well, I guess it's true in all mythology because it's like werewolves, stuff like that. But yeah, the final form, like that's a very God, and it's like if you play video games nowadays, it's like how many forms are there? Oh, great.
I'm also wondering, since you brought up the hair for Super Saiyan Goku, one of the things I've never seen Toriyama comment on is why Frieza became basically naked. He'll be back. There we go. I'm wondering why Frieza became naked, if that had to do with saving ink as well, because Frieza goes from having not the most detailed armor, but he's got all those lines because he's got that pink skin, or maybe that's part of his armor, and eventually he's just buck naked, junk hanging out in the wind and everything, and he's mainly white.
I was gonna say he's not only butt naked, but yeah, it's like there's not a lot of texture or detail. I would not be surprised if that was like a trick from Toriyama to catch up, like, well, especially because the other weird thing is like Toriyama loves to draw vehicles and stuff. I think he enjoyed the fight. Like he was a master of spacing with fights. Like no one is better than that. But it's like I can imagine that was well, especially back then, because it's like they would never give people breaks. Because, like, the rumor is, and it's not true, but the rumor was always like, oh, Toriyama wanted to stop after Frieza, which isn't true, but it felt like that just because it's like, where do you go after Frieza? Because it's like he conquered the biggest thing in the universe. Because nowadays, yeah, it's like if Oda's like, hey, I want to take a month, I'm pretty sure even like 5 months off, like it's Oda. But like like Frieren, it's like, hey, I want to take a couple months off to like gather my thoughts. I think Shueisha's learned by now. It's like, yeah, it's better to let them cook than to wear them out. Because like we could have got a lot more, maybe not more Dragon Ball, but we might have got a whole nother series. But they burnt out Toriyama where he's like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah, and I think even the animation side of things has gotten better, because whereas with series like Dragon Ball and Bleach and Naruto probably is one of the worst examples of this, they don't do as much filler as they used to. They are okay with just doing 12 to 40 episode core instead of, oh, we're taking maybe 1 or 2 weeks off and we're going to continue with it. With One Piece, obviously, what we're closing in on, or we've already reached 1,200 episodes. With One Piece, the filler makes sense because with One Piece, the story's about the journey. But one thing that can really take away from your enjoyment of a long-running anime is filler that cuts off the middle of the story arc. You get through the filler and it kicks right back up with where it left off in the story arc.
Well, and the thing with One Piece, it's like it's brilliant in so many ways because since it's pirates and island hopping, you can kind of go, it's like, well, when did this happen? It's like, yeah, some between here and here. Like it's that loose timeline because like I love the old Dragon Ball Z movies. None of them make sense story-wise because they're like, well, when would this? Because trust me, well, what's weird is Garlic Jr. saga had to happen because he comes back in the Garlic Jr. saga. Like,
even though the timeline for that movie doesn't make any sense, since Krillin and Piccolo are both aware of Gohan's existence by that point. If this were to take place in that 5-year gap between Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, which for the record, those of you who don't know out there, it was originally just Dragon Ball continuing. Z is something that really caught on because of the way it was animated.
Well, do you know why it got switched to Z in the anime and not in the manga?
It'll ring a bell, but tell me.
Because you get more marketing and money when it's a new show. So they argued it's like, hey, this is technically a new show because he's older. Like, because it's not uncommon for Japanese shows to be like, hey, the new season's a new generation, or they're old, like to go with that storytelling, like with JoJo's Bizarre Adventures. So they argued that, and that's why they added the Z. Because honestly, like Toriyama, we needed a name. He's like, Z, it's the end of the story.
Yeah, I do remember that part. And then when he decided he didn't want to do anymore, it still wasn't the end of the story because we got the now supposedly non-canon Dragon Ball GT.
To Torsten's question, I haven't watched a lot of the anime, but from my understanding, it's very, very close. Like I think there's like one or two fill-in like mini arcs, but it's like as the show goes on, it becomes closer to 101. And even like the fill-in season, like I've heard a lot of people tell me that it's like it actually answers a couple, like it fits well in One Piece.
If you want Torsen to have just kind of brief overviews of One Piece without going full spoiler, one gentleman who lives in the UK that I stand by his reviews and his passion for manga and anime is totally not Mark. He does summary videos of One Piece and other series and takes input from the fans to the point that when he was reviewing a somewhat recent arc, he took the feedback to incorporate an anime only mini story arc because of how integral it is to expanding the story. And it's one that Oda himself stands by them including. I'm not sure if he contributed to it. The animated series is great, but it's getting Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood treatment soon with Netflix helping produce the One Piece anime series.
And I feel like that's been the big difference because like Toriyama, he always wanted to draw manga. He enjoyed it. But from my understanding, end of the day, this was a job. He was very much a company man. Like he always put in his best work, but he's like, this is a job. I have a family. He had no problem. Oda, One Piece is life. Like literally he tells his assistants, like, if your phone rings and I'm like, you need to answer, like One Piece comes first. Like if you can't handle it. So I think there's a certain dedication to that. I haven't watched Totally Not Markened. First of all, a whole lot of YouTube channels have dumb names. Because I forget, that was like an inside joke. It took off, so now he's stuck with it. Great channel, though.
Great guy, too.
Great channel, but the worst one is Mark with like 5 T's. I'm like, what? Why?
Oh, 100%, brother. 100%.
And the worst part is you do such great videos. It's like, if anything, literature and pictures should be called that, like Matt with 4 T's.
The content that gentleman puts out is stellar, though, and he is one of the few people that will delve into the ins and outs of the comic industry, but not try to make it flowery. He lets all the zits and warts be out in the open.
Because another one I recommend, what's it called? Like Strange Brain Parts?
I'm not familiar with that one.
1 second.
But I've got a video loading on Tuesday because I'm starting to get the hang of this, believe it or not, folks. I'm learning how to schedule content ahead of time. I've got a video coming out about Floating Island Productions, which is Ken Pender's company. Ken Penders wrote the Sonic the Hedgehog Archie comic series in a while, and my hope is that I'll be able to get some further perspective from him, because even though he's a controversial figure within the industry, without him, I think it would have taken a hell of a lot longer for me to get into the world of comics.
It is interesting because, like, this is a landmine. with the internet nowadays, like you get to know a lot about almost everyone, even like doing interview, because it's like I remember a time where it's like you didn't know what someone looked like, because it's like with Full Metal Alchemist, I think we all had the surprise, like, oh, a woman created, like, not that we're sexist, it's just like you had no idea because it's a
Well,
Japanese
the avatar was a cow with the Toriyama robot. I forget what they call him.
Birdman or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, you could tell that was a masculine figure. With the cow for One Piece, you couldn't tell one way or another.
Because like Oda draws himself as like, I'm a fish, I'm what? Yeah, because because that's the other thing with like manga. It's quite common. They don't want anyone to know who their faces are because they want that anonymity.
Well, they have a more severe, and I'm surprised at this. Apparently, they have a more severe stalking issue in Japan than we do here in the U.S. It was really surprising when I heard about that, and how even people like Rumiko Takahashi had to hide their identity.
Do you know? Yeah, because like she was quite like, I feel like everyone knows what she looks like. Do you know the channel Bonsai Pop?
I do. I'm subscribed.
Have you watched the Rurouni Kenshin one, the controversy one?
Yes, I have.
Now, the thing they point out, like, one, I recommend that one highly because very controversial figure. But one thing they point out, and because they go through like the whole controversy, but they also go through like the whole history of Japan. But it's like Japan was a feudal country. Like they didn't have that like growing period that most countries had. They went from feudal to like imperial overnight. And I think some of the stocking, I think some of that is that like layover of the feudal period. They didn't have that like transition that most countries had. So all of a sudden it's like, oh, yeah, like, because I think I would not be, because I know like I can't remember if prostitution's like legal, or if it's just one of those things like we put a blind eye, but it's more common over there.
I don't think it's openly talked about, but then there are areas, very conservative areas, where you can turn a corner and there's a love hotel.
But I was about to say it's not illegal though. It's not like hidden from taxes. Like the cops are going to raid it.
Right. According to this, I just looked it up. Prostitution has been illegal in Japan since the Prostitution Prevention Law of 1956, but it's not apparently steadily enforced.
But even then, like 1956, because it's like, I bet you most other countries, it's like 1890 or something like that.
Well, that's fascinating as well. You took a lot of your inspiration from Japanese culture for Bang, and they in turn take a lot of our culture and incorporate it into their works. I mean, Toriyama was inspired 100% by Terminator for his Android/Cell saga. He's gone on record for that. And maybe just like our pop culture takes a little while to move into other areas, so do other aspects of our culture, if that makes sense.
Oh, completely, because it's the kind of thing like, okay, like, because the Black Plague back in Europe spread like wildfire because they didn't have as high of hygiene, whereas like China and some other places in the world had higher, and it's like you balance out. And that's kind of the idea that makes like trading interaction with cultures a lot better, because it's like, hey, you do this well, let's steal this. Because like the weird thing with Japan, they do not, like, how to word this, they're not known for making anything original. What they're amazing at is taking stuff, reincorporating it, and making their own. Because like a lot of their mythology comes from the mainland, aka China. Like, it's crazy how much they went, oh, that's a good idea, change a couple things, it's now our idea.
And no further do you have to dig than within their pop culture, because you hit the nail on the head earlier that things continue from previous stories, stuff like Naruto, One Piece, even as recently as My Hero Academia. They don't necessarily steal, but they borrow elements and concepts from Dragon Ball.
Well, what's crazy too is one of my favorite stories is Journey to the West, and
which inspired Dragon Ball.
well, and here's the funny thing: is everyone goes to Dragon Ball, especially because Goku is literally Sun Wukong. Do you know which storyline has way more Journey to the West that no one thinks about?
What would that be?
Inuyasha.
Oh, I can see that.
Okay, let's go down the list. Inuyasha, terrible demon wrecking havoc, gets by a priestess, gets pinned to a tree for X amount of years. Sun Wukong by Buddha gets trapped under a mountain. A priest comes up, takes off the thing, releases character. They then have to put a cursed item on thing that's voice activated to control them, aka Sit Boy.
Sit Boy.
You then have a horny monk, aka Pixie. Like, there is so much where I'm like, it's just Journey. Do you know the channel Overly Sarcastic Productions?
Yes, I'm subscribed to that as well.
Also, Torsten, that is one you need to, like, if Torsten's not a part of that one, I feel like he would love. Oh, yeah, like, Attack on Titans is a lot of German culture. Even, like, Project Madagascar, which is a slight spoiler, but it's been around for 10 years, so we'll go with it.
I'm a big fan of Attack on Titan, not just because of the story, but because it incorporates elements of that culture.
So when I remember watching the first episode, and I'm like, this is beyond dumb. Why are people loving this? And a friend of mine was like, just watch the first season. I'm like, but I hated the Titan designs. I'm like, these are just naked. I'm like, what is this? kept watching. I don't know when all of a sudden I went from like, this is the dumbest thing ever to, especially My War. That is one of my favorite intros to any like show. It's like, oh,
you have to admit some of the designs do stick in your head. Like, everyone points to the Derp Titan or the Titan that, spoiler alert for the manga's 15 years old at this point, not including the original sketches. Spoiler alert, one of the main characters gets to watch their relative become Titan Chow. That Titan sticks out in a lot of minds.
What's funny is, though, I'm like, that happens to a lot of people. Well, here's the other crazy thing, and I encourage like a lot of people to get on the One Piece train, because we're going to be the only generation that doesn't know we can enjoy the story without knowing what the One Piece is. Because I guarantee you, once that drops, that's going to become pop culture, like common knowledge.
Yeah, and my hope would be that people are willing to allow the story to gestate and not spoil, but we live in a culture filled with spoilers. We do. And they've even referenced that in Team 4 Star's Hellsing Bridge. Well, while Alucard is hibernating, One Piece finishes, and when he comes back, they make the joke that the ending wasn't capitalized on, because immediately after they did what they did with Naruto, which presented Boruto, and they started Two Piece.
Yeah. Oh my, that is one thing I'm not liking with Japan of late. Because, like, have you read Mao by Rumiki Takahashi?
I think you and I are the only two reading it right now.
Right? Apparently, I think other people are, because it's coming out regularly. But I feel like Mao is like her kind of going like, I liked Inuyasha, but I failed on the villains. So what if I did this like a little better? Like, let's try this again the second time around.
And I'm not sure if Inuyasha is one of those stories that originally progressed the way that she wanted it to either. I'm wondering if like Toriyama and his editor, she had a relationship with her editor that forced some changes, because even in the manga, it feels like there are one or two filler arcs. Not bad. They still help progress toward the end, but they don't have the same punch.
Are you caught up on Mao?
I think I'm 2 volumes behind right now.
Okay, technically it's not a spoiler, but you know how like with Mao, it's like you have the main story, like the main background story, then they'll do like a monster of the week, then we'll go back to the background. Mm-hmm. I'm noticing a lot less monster of the week, so I'm wondering if we're getting near the end game on this. Like nothing's happened like yet, but it just kind of feels like we're spending a lot more time focused on this area than like. But
and see, that's what happened with Inuyasha. Things all of a sudden started speeding up. I think it's been a while since I've read Ranma, so forgive me, but I think Ranma had the same sort of story progression where they had the ability to kind of just have fun, and then toward the end, it really picked up the pace.
Well, Ranma was a sitcom because it's like it doesn't even have like a true ending. It's like next time, yeah. The problem with Inuyasha was the stupid baboon became the stupid story because everything was around him. Like, it's like my machinations. It's like, yeah, we get it. Like literally,
and then we couldn't focus on Naraku. We had to focus on the love triangle between Inuyasha, Kagome, and Kikyo until people got tired of it, and one of them got murked.
I won't lie. In some ways, like my favorite Inuyasha is before Kikyo because I'm like, oh yeah, her. I will say this with Mao. I think she did a much better job with the villains. So it's like she can jump around. Like even though we're not going to more of the like monster of the week, it's still interesting because it's like, okay, we can talk about this character. We can talk about like there's stuff she can play around with. And I think what's crazy is giving them a week, like having them do manga for like 3 weeks out of 4 out of the month, just that week off makes a huge, because like One Piece dramatically improved because it's like, oh yeah, I can, and I think that's the other thing, like you were talking about with independence, like, yeah, you got a little bit more time to work, kind of think things out, because it's like, I'm not trying to meet like, because even if the dream would be to do this full time, I don't know if I could do this, like, maybe if I had some help, but like, even doing it like every month, the question is like, okay, how much does the impact, like, could you do it at the same quality? Like, is there something where it's like, it's a quarterly, what's a perfect recipe? So,
and only you can come to that conclusion. And I think even though corporations have to make money, I think corporate comics would be even better and more, I guess heartfelt is the right term. They come from a different place is what I'm getting at. If the creative team could allow things to gestate and work at a pace they determine rather than following the deadlines set by the corporate structure.
Well, because like Torsten said, creativity can't be rushed. I think the other problem is, especially with quote unquote corporate comics, one, I wish we'd have, and I'm just using this as a general term because clearly Marvel wouldn't use this, but the Adventures line where it's like, hey, this is based off of like our TV shows. Because truly, I'm like, why don't we have a Wonder Woman Adventures line? Yes, I know there wasn't ever a Wonder Woman's cartoon, but there's enough back matter and like we have cartoon designs. You could make a Wonder Woman adventure where it's like, hey, let's just take like the best, like Batman the Animated Series was literally like, we're going to take the best of Batman, streamline it to like the most basic essentials so you can enjoy it.
And because Paul Dini and Bruce Timm, Miss Shirley Walker, and that whole team, because they were able to showcase how their love of the source material helped their creativity blossom. Eventually, they were able to take risks and tell their own stories. That's why we have Harley Quinn. That's why we have Renee Montoya. One character has blossomed a little bit more than the other, but we wouldn't have those characters if creativity weren't allowed to blossom.
we have a whole episode with Jonah Hex, and it's not a watered down Jonah Hex.
No, it's brilliant. It's one of the best episodes they've put out, and no one talks about it.
I think the other thing is, and actually, while you're doing that, let me see if I can find. I just found one. Like this dude does like video essays on the Batman, like all the DCU animated series. But
is it Awesome Walter?
I don't know. But I was about to say, I think the other thing is, like I said, have those like kids, like kid friendly, like all ages, kind of basic, kind of friendly stuff. But I think the other problem is, especially like how many Spider-Man titles, it's like how many X-Men titles do we need? Because it's like, it's insane. Like I don't know. It's like even the current run, I feel like a lot of people are like, yeah, most of this isn't good. It's like, oh.
Yeah, so tomorrow's Batman Day, and Torson's asking about my Batman Day video that he assigned all of us.
Yeah.
So if all y'all who are watching this now or later want to see me put on my Batman voice and the mask I bought to review Bible Black, which is still coming, James, get off my ass. No, I'm just kidding. It is still coming. I just changed the format. Check out the short. I will have a Batman video, and Bible Black TBD, but I changed the format completely. Torson wants to know what your favorite Batman book is.
Okay, one, I found the channel. I put it in the personal chat, so you can put it in the main chat. I hate, like, for the longest time, it's been The Long Halloween. But Batman the Cult might have overthrown it, which is... it might be Batman the Cult, because just between, like, the plot, the villain, and Bernie Wrightson, like, it's hard to beat Bernie Wrightson. Like, oof. Especially, like, we can talk about his paneling, his shadows, his composition, but the main storytelling and paneling is on a whole nother level too. Like, because there are pages where, if you're part of the Near Mint Condition book club, you can see my full review there. But there are pages where it's like you had like Batman in the center row, like just the way the arguments break down and the coloring. Because I feel like I'm more in the camp. I can never get into like the mainline Batman stories because I'm like, what's going on? This feels kind of eh. Because I love like Batman the animated series, so I do love Batman Adventures. Because like I've read Court of Owls, which is fun, but the problem with Court of Owls, like I feel like the beginning of it, I'm like, this is some good stuff. Then it keeps going. I'm like, yeah, okay, you kind of lost the plot here.
See, I certainly understand that. I will credit Snyder with a few things, and that is Scott Snyder, not Zack Snyder, audience. Two completely different human beings. I think the early aspects of his New 52 run were really about breaking Batman down without deconstructing him. Instead, they break him down by showing that maybe he would have been better off not just crime fighting, but really living up to the title of the world's greatest detective, even though Omar of Near Mint Condition says he is a 6 out of 10 occult detective.
No. He said he is a 6 out of 10 character, just 6 out of 10. He did not give us an explanation.
But later on, as Snyder was able to bring his initial story to a conclusion, the last two arcs, which I believe are titled Super Heavy and Bloom, so issues 41 through 50, and then 51 and 52 are an epilogue to an epilogue. 41 through 50 really act as an epilogue, and he just goes balls to the wall and has fun with Greg Capullo. He even joked about trying to make Capullo feel uncomfortable by writing what he believed to be the first on-panel Batman / Bruce Wayne sex scene. And you can tell that they have a lot of fun with that. They close out the series in a great way before Tom King takes over when DC Rebirth takes place. One full story, but a story that I feel may have gone on past what the originally intended ending was.
Well, and that's a hard thing too with any the big two, because like I said before, you get a good idea and it's like, oh, this is making us money. How a prequel or but because like with Court of Owls, it's a really good idea, but it only kind of works once because it's like we have a hidden society. Cool, it's no longer hidden. Yeah, but forget about them.
And they really tried to make them stay relevant to the point that they had James Tynion IV, who is considered an all-star writer at this point, write a story centered around one of their foot soldiers known as a Talon. I think that series lasted maybe 19 issues, and it was great. But when you center it around a mystery that's already been resolved, it's really hard to keep people interested. So when that didn't work, they tried to come at Dick Grayson and make him live up to the legacy he was originally supposed to take on. And that led to the Grayson miniseries that became an ongoing in full. And that didn't really reinforce the idea that the Court of Owls were significant.
So before I forget, in our private chat, I put that link to the site. I think you would enjoy this one. Like, he does a lot of great breakdowns, and he likes to base the concept off of emotions. So I think you would love it.
I put that in the chat, and I subscribed as well.
But did you put it in the chat, like the YouTube chat? Because I haven't seen it. Oh, you did. Sorry, I'm behind. Ha ha ha. Anyway, I think the other problem though.
Are you sure your name's not Jess? No, I'm just kidding.
I think the other problem is, especially with the Court of Owls, they try to insert them into like Dick Grayson. I'm like, don't do that. We don't need that. Like, it's literally like they're like, we could fit this into every part. It's like, if anything, they should not have touched those characters for like 5 to 10 years, and then when they came back, it would have been a huge. Because I think, especially like a character like the Joker. I think in some ways it's like y'all need to just like retire the Joker for a while, really just be like, all right, we should bring back Mr. J, but how do we bring back Mr. J? Like,
because of his overuse, and I'm not saying that I wouldn't read a story with the character, but because of his overuse, the Joker is one of my least favorite Batman villains. It has a little bit to do with the fact that he was abusive toward Harley, and I hate abusive relationships, both in real life and fiction. But I feel like in fiction, it can be one of the cheapest routes to go with two characters in a relationship. It's become a trope at this point. But the Joker, we had Snyder's story. We had the Joker incorporated into technically 3 major arcs. No spoilers for Super Heavy and Bloom. We had The Last Night on Earth, I believe it was called, and the Joker was part of that. And we've had Tynion tackle the Joker multiple times. We have more villains. Yes, Torsen makes a good point. The Penguin is underutilized, and I feel like nothing speaks more truth to that than the quality of the Penguin maxi series that they released, 2 years ago at this point during the Zdarsky Batman run?
I think, and the other thing is, one, you got the comic side, but then you got like the movies, and because the movies, they always would go to the Joker, and it's like, okay, we get, there are other characters. Because like, I would love, they would never do it. Oh, maybe Gunn would do it, but I doubt it. I would love to see like Batman with Clayface and Killer Croc. And the reason is I don't want them working together because I want like Killer Croc to flood Gotham So you have a scene of him like going through the streets, but water's dangerous for Clayface. So you have like, I want them fighting each other and fighting Batman. Like, because I'm tired of this too, where it's like we both hate Batman, especially Batman does it all the time.
I'd be all for that. I'm really excited for the live action Clayface movie because there's so many different directions you can go with any of the iterations of Clayface, especially, I forget if he was Clayface 2 or 3 that they incorporate into the animated series. I'd love for them to take that direction with the character because they could even take it in a spy direction since he's basically a changeling with Killer Croc. I'd love to see that as well because, again, Snyder is doing stellar work with that character in the Absolute Batman line. He feels like an organic character instead of just a heavyweight.
Well, and it's kind of what's crazy is because like Killer Croc was more of a luchador, like a humanistic crocodile, but in some ways like a luchador, like just a big guy, certain moves. And it's like I feel like as time goes on and on and on, he's become more of an animal. Like he's become that more like werewolf animal, like mixture of animal and man. See, that's the thing. I haven't read Tinian's Detective, so in some ways I am out of this loop here. Yeah, okay, first of all, this is something I'm tired with comics. Lady Clayface, it's like you all couldn't come up with a new like something. Just Lady Clayface. It's like, God, that's lazy.
Yeah, like we discussed in the Omnibuds stream last week, Josh isn't planning to introduce a Mandang anytime soon.
Well, and I'm sorry. We as a group have accepted the name Stiltman. And it's like that's a because
but there is a Lady Stiltman.
Which is like Lady Stilt. Lady Stilt. I
forget or the name. Stiletto. Name her Stiletto.
Dude, oh, dude. That was on the that was on the table. I forget the name of it. There's a comic. I think it's like let me look it up. If only I had the internet. They have a comic called Street Fighting Man, and it's literally like a homage to like 70s comics and stuff. But it's like, yeah, because like Street Fighting Man, it's like, yep, that describes a lot of comics.
It does. Are you talking about the series from Spain Rodriguez?
No, this is Granway Comics. Man, and this is one I wish they got more love. And this is another, I think they're self-published because I think it's like 2 or 3 guys. The only thing is they have like 4 titles.
You're talking about the one from Jeff Knott, right?
I don't even know who makes it. I sent you the link in the private, so.
Yes, that's it.
Okay, because yeah, they do like the Laser Boy. I'm like, yeah. The other one I like a little bit more, Wild Girl. But yeah, it's like they have so many titles. In some ways, I'm like, man, if you did like one of the, really worked on one of these.
I got into that comic because I believe one of the wonderful employees at Third Eye Comics Annapolis recommended that I check it out.
Also, I just want to point out, Torsten's left for dinner, left to put the kids away, and we are still going because we're insane. How has it been 3 hours?
It's been almost 3 hours. Hey, I'm on your dime whenever you want to call it. Let's call it.
Oh, man. Oh, like I've given your channel quite a couple things. I didn't realize it was this late. Oh, yeah, this is, man. Especially because, like, you gotta do the whole song and dance, like buy my book. I do feel like though more people are like once you show like go in depth and show like some other stuff than just be like buy my book, it works out a little bit better.
It does, and they get to know you not just as a creator who's trying to share their wares, but they get to know you as a person. Like I've been blessed to be able to do so for the past 3 years now.
And Torsten left because we need to bring back Movie Club. But yeah, it's the kind of thing. One way or another, I'm going to do Bang. One way or another, it's going to be wacky because, I got some. Well, and the other thing is, no, I won't share that. There's certain tropes of fantasy that I'm excited to play around with. I guess I'll put it that way because it's easy to do the same thing over and over and over again. But especially, God, it's a whole nother can of worms. But with Hollywood, it feels like Hollywood nowadays are like, oh, you want fantasy? So Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones. It's like, there's other fantasy. It's like, no, there's Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones.
Well, they've tried to do Wheel of Time, and that hasn't gone well.
Okay, no, I haven't read Wheel of Time, but from my understanding, that's a very complex. It's like, in some ways, that would have been better animated, it sounded like.
Oh, most definitely. Since you brought up Lord of the Rings, one of the first fantasy properties that I fell in love with as a child, and I read all 7 books one summer, 7 times in full. I bet you can guess it. Yes.
You know how I knew?
How?
1, you said 7 times, but 2, knowing your background, I'm like, wait a minute. I know the allegory of Jesus.
And not only that, he and Tolkien were friends. I love that series, and I would also watch that cartoon's probably 50 or 60 years old at this point. I would watch that, and I'd watch I think BBC funded the adaptations of the first 4 books, but I was made to close my eyes when Prince Caspian would change clothes. Don't know why, because it's not like the 1968 Romeo and Juliet where they show anything, but whatever.
Parents.
We're supposedly getting another adaptation from Netflix since the Walden adaptation through Disney and then Fox fell through. I hope that it's paid proper respect, because even though it's seen as more of a Christian story, it doesn't have to delve into that as deeply as they think. And I think from a certain perspective, the Lord of the Rings touches more on religion than Narnia does in some parts.
Because Lord of the Rings, it's a mixture of English, Celtic, and Norse mythology, especially the whole Ring saga. Because did I tell you my theory on orcs?
No, you have not.
I feel like orcs are how the French monks viewed Vikings. Because
makes sense.
You have a band of creatures that just raid, that only know war, that have no other culture, no females, just. Now, wait, here's another question. How much do you know of Warhammer?
More than people would think I know.
Do you know about the greenskins?
I do know about the greenskins.
Okay, now because we both know, but the audience doesn't know, and then we can end on this because this is a sign of this was on the table, and I wish I could have taken this. So in Warhammer, orcs are actually vegetables / mushrooms. They're fungus. So the way they work are, the bigger you are, the more important you are. But what's brilliant about them is they don't need a culture. Like, it solves all the orc problems. Because it's like, you don't need a culture. You don't need children. Because they literally spawn. And it's like, well, how do we have a giant army that comes out of nowhere? It's like, it literally solves every problem. And it's interesting because one thing I like with Farscape, one of the creatures are more plant the animal based, and they play around with that. But it's like, well, wait a minute, yeah, if we're going out into space, not everything's going to be carbon based.
No, and I think, and I'm not faulting him for it, but I think that's one of the mistakes that they make in a lot of sci-fi, that they really think carbon is the only way to bring about a feasible life form.
Well, and in truth, it would make sense to have a plant-based being in space, because it's like, if you have a bunch of carbonated creatures, then you had a couple creatures that take that carbon and make it into oxygen automatically. it's like, okay, how do you, it's like, that's the thing with sci-fi. It's like, how do you solve these? Well, it's like I said, it's like, how do you have these annoying problems? Like the whole locking into place with the car. Because it's like, yeah, it's a futuristic problem that somehow came about that became normal to them.
Yes, Torsten. I
Oh,
mean, Bunk, you get it.
look who it is
Bunk,
with the Greathouse
gets
art.
it. How is Jess's?
I think it's official. We beat Jess.
How did we run longer than Jess? Because I've seen him run for 5 or 6 hours before on stream.
Right? Aha.
Omnidog Nation, woof woof.
Oh, well, you know what? That's the funny thing is, because I feel like with sci-fi, you need like pseudo BS science to solve the problem. With fantasy, it's more like, how far can we stretch magic? Like, how far can we really stretch this idea?
That's true. See, it's funny you mentioned that, Bunk. Bunk says carbonated creatures have got CO2 bubbles. At one point in my younger years, I had written a story where the Power Rangers were empowered through carbonated beverages instead of dinosaurs or magic or anything like that.
Man, you change it from Power Rangers. You change a couple things. You got a soup there.
Well, I'm working on, and I've worked on so many things that I've never brought to completion publishing wise. I've got pitches I could send out to publishers, but I'm legitimately working on a book that could be multiple, inspired by my love of Power Rangers, which, like comics and Sonic the Hedgehog, helped raise me. It's amazing that I turned out somewhat normal, and I'm incorporating important people in my life, from you to Bunk to others, into characters with permissions, of course.
Like I said, though, I would change the name. I would loosely base it off of, because like I said, if my version of Steven eats a puppy, now all of a sudden he's got to explain for the rest of his life, especially if he was introducing us to his family and friends.
Well, I'll tell you, as punishment for not telling me which Rangers they wanted to be inspired by in the book, some of the members of the Omnibuds Cafe admin group are going to have their genders swapped in the book, because we don't need just a team of all men in the book.
Well, I think that's the other thing too. Man, this opens up a whole another can of worms. Because it's like, one, yeah, it's like, but we've got enough books with just like men. And it's like, look, if someone wants to do an all guys book, have at it, Haas. But I also feel like some of the stuff where it's like, oh, why don't we have this? Like, I would love to see more like books and stuff based off like African myths. It's like, I'm not the guy to do that. I hope someone else is, because I want to enjoy that book. So it's like, I do think like you need more variety in voices and exploring and pushing boundaries.
100%. I want to see diversity put forth as a priority within our culture of comics, and that's one of the reasons why I picked up this Noir's New Black book, which Kevin from Omnibuds and I talked about with BJ Kicks. Bunk says comics with all guys written for a primarily male audience. Has such a thing ever been done? No, it would probably be quite revolutionary.
You know what? I don't know why. Hear me out. But pouches. I think a lot of pouches would do well with that group.
So are you saying that this is not one of those books?
Oh, why do you have that one?
Was $24.99 as opposed to $100 retail at Ollie's.
One, why is that in your house though? That takes up space. Well, Bunk, maybe you should. Did you do a video about that book? Did you share that book? 'Cause I know you love Aftershock.
What was that book called? I would certainly read that. One of the books that stays on my wish list that I need to purchase at some point is that independently published book. I think it's just titled Black.
I do not know that one.
Land of the Living Gods. It was one of the last books that Aftershock published. Adding to wish list. And we joke around here, audience. We all love and care for one another, and that's one of the reasons we do joke with one another. Bunk and Josh don't go to war with each other.
That's a bold statement that does not represent neither Josh nor Bunk. How dare you?
So Josh needs an asterisk. The statements Steve makes are not necessarily true.
Yeah, I got it black and white. I don't care of Josh.
Bunk says he doesn't care for Josh.
Well, Josh offers him a ride in the middle of the night, saving X amount on an Uber. Ever just pulled up to a strange 7-foot-tall giraffe and go, get in? Yeah, I have. Also, for the record, Bunk is not human. He's an eldritch horror that just somehow managed to write a resume and get a job. But
even Bunk knows the value of good stuff cheap at Ollie's.
Yeah, because you've never met Bunk, and you've never experienced the eldritch horror, the male moose.
I have not. Did you get to have that pleasure when he came to visit you at Heroes Con?
I mean, pleasure is a bold word, but we did meet physically.
Jess did just describe me as breathtaking on the last stream. Now, to steal from Josh a little bit, does that mean breathtaking as in belovedly handsome, or were you literally stealing the breath from inside of his body?
I was
in my hotel room.
I was in a hotel room with with Bunk, David, and Jake.
Wait a minute. I think I have a GIF that describes that. What about bondage fairies? Or I gotta say, you're giving out some real horny vibe right there.
No, the weirdest thing with that room, it was full of so many comics. Especially, you could tell like which comics were which because there was like the Bunk pile and the Jake pile. But then, man, they went nuts on the Uber Eats. Like there was just so much food. Also, for the audience, do not follow Bunk's channel. Why don't follow Bunk's channel? Because he'll recommend books you've never heard of, but then you'll go, man, these are amazing books. Then you'll buy said books and read said books, and you'll go, man, I should be reading more of these books and less of the Spider-Man. So, just avoid it.
You did miss Josh's commentary on Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees earlier, though, Bunk.
Honestly, I don't think anyone would care about that book if it wasn't for the animal aspect, but yeah.
But that gives me an idea that if you needed to develop a children suitable book, animals are one of the best ways to go into that realm.
My mom would be excited.
Bunk says the best part was the only wings from Wingstop that got delivered were my vegetarian cauliflower wings. What?
I think, well, because Bunk, fun fact, eldritch horror, that good chance would like rip you apart. Doesn't eat meat. So one of those weird herbivores that can kill you. But like, because David and Jake both ordered like, traditional wings. They just like deliver. They're just like, we don't have time to make multiple things. So let's just make them all the cauliflower wings. Which there are two things. One, I think they need a new name, but the cauliflower dish that Bunk got is actually, it was good. I just hate the like cauliflower wings, but I do recommend.
Yeah, I recommend those as well. It seems to be a common trope at this point with Wingstop because even two locations close by to me have made several mistakes. But good thing is it's humans that work there, and if you communicate respectfully with humans, sometimes you get the the result you're looking for. Not always, though.
Oh man. But yeah, Heroes Con, that is the show that is such a fun show.
I would love to attend at some point, and I think it would be prudent for myself and my lady to visit the East Coast once again at some point.
Yeah, because you're off in Texas, right?
Yes, sir. And unfortunately, I've incorporated y'all into my vernacular. Bunk says he disagrees on Beneath the Trees. He thinks it got more popular because of the animals, but Horvath's painted pages and abrupt, shocking changes of tone would resonate even without the animals. I will agree with that, and I am a fan of Beneath the Trees, but I'm leaving what's the current mini-series called, Rites of Spring, alone until it's in collected edition form, because at the time I was hesitant when the original series was coming out to add anything more to my list. I was on a strict budgetary diet at the time.
I will agree. Amazing artist. My problem is, and spoiler to this book if you haven't read it, I'll give you the thumbs up when I'm done spoiling, just in case you want to put it on mute. I doubt, because we're going on 4 hours now each. I felt like the ending was just so basic, especially when it was the kid, because I'm just like, oh, okay. It just felt by the numbers. In some ways, I was kind of hoping it would be a random guy from the city who was doing the opposite, where it's like, hey, I fade so much into the background, I wanted to stand out for once. Because with her, she wanted to fade, she didn't want anyone to recognize she was killing. So when it was just him, especially her killing her only friend, and the friend's I'm okay with, it just felt dumb.
See, I respect that point of view. I think the reason why it didn't bother me as much, even though that's been done before, is because I feel like Horvath was paying tribute to other works. One of my favorite horror serial killer television series is Dexter, and it almost kind of reflected the route that the character took in season 3, where his being a serial killer helped inspire another serial killer, and he had to decide whether or not to take on this mentorship or to take out this other serial killer. With it being Dexter, even without outright spoiling season 3, I'm sure the audience can figure out the route he took. Bunk says, if you want more about the city, you do get that in Rites of Spring. Thank you. I'm going to look forward to that. Bunk, if you could encourage my lady to actively read the original series and read the gigantic stack of comics that I've purchased for her, that would be appreciated as well. Because I'm not the one who put Penthouse comics on my pull list at the shop. She loves that stuff, but she needs to actually read it. Her friend wasn't okay with being killed. She was saying she knew that she was a killer. She absolutely did not realize that Sam would turn that murder on her. Yeah, again, kind of a reflection of season 3 of Dexter. Bunk says I might have a better chance of encouraging Monty. Dude, if I could teach Monty to read, I would love that. I do consider him my furry child, so to be able to hold him close and read something age appropriate would be excellent. I could read him bang.
I'm curious with you and Bunk. Did you read it as a trade or did you read it as issues?
I read it. I read it as a trade paperback because I was willing to wait on it after intentionally opting out of the singles.
Because I read it, I read the first 3, then waited for the trade. So by the time I got to it, it's I might have built it up too much in my head. It just felt it just felt like the by the numbers to me. But
I get that. I've seen a lot of love for another recent series, Exquisite Corpses from James Tinian, but I've also seen people who have bought the issues and then read them all at once and feel like it was overly hyped, like they built it up in their head, and even though they enjoyed it, they didn't enjoy it as much when they read it. So Bunk says, issues, mofo. I saw the ad for it in Ministry of Compliance, another great series, and was all in. He also says Exquisite Corpses.
He says Exquisite Corpses is terrible. I'm surprised Bunk hates that book. Like he says it black and white, just worst book ever. That's a weird take, Bunk.
What's fascinating about that series to me is he really took a creator-driven turn with that series, not just because it's a creator-owned series, but he kind of made a decision like you did with the formatting of Bang. Each issue, instead of being $3.99 like your average Image Comics single issue, is $4.99 because it's a thicker comic, and instead of making people trade wait until there were between 4 to 6 issues, the first trade paperback is supposedly permanently priced at $9.99, and it's only the first 3 issues because these suckers are thick as heck. That's actually I love that because he's not only giving you the most bang for your buck, he's encouraging you to enjoy it at your leisure.
I was going to say, Image, that's a common practice of theirs. The first volume is always like $9.99 because they want to get people hooked. Mm-hmm. And it's, I think the other thing is, like, if you've done enough series, you got to play with the format where it's like, and sometimes like, hey, let me add a couple more pages.
Yeah, exactly. If you have a creator-owned comic, if you're not driven by what the corporation wants, then do what the streaming services do. Have it the length that you feel fits for that particular story, whether it's a collected edition or a single issue. Bunk says Exquisite Corpses is a book I did not expect to like nearly as much as I did. It's so stylish, so slick, so gruesomely fun. When it comes out as a hardcover, that's a day one purchase. I'm not subscribed to Tinian's Substack, but I do know from speaking to someone that is subscribed to it that there are plans eventually for a hardcover, but it would be once he's built up enough issues, and we can expect probably 2 or 3 waves of the card game to come out before the oversized hardcover comes out.
And that's the hard thing with any indie, because it's like it is an annoying game because like there's indies and then there's indies. Because like I bought like King of Spies, the trade paperback. The day I bought it, they announced the hardcover, like the library. I was like, oh, of course. And it's like
that's Miller for you.
Yeah, and I mainly got it from Mateo's art. Like, 'cause then there's like other stuff like Headlopper. Then they're like, self-publishing like me, but even like Headlopper, I love that series. They've all been paperbacks because I'm like, yeah, I don't know if it sells enough to justify like a hardcover yet. And honestly, Are we getting more Coda? Because that feels like a Bunk book. You would know about that.
I'll let him answer that. I really don't know.
Because we get that first trade, and I'm like, sweet. And I was like, are we getting more?
He says, I'm still reading Exquisite Corpses digitally along the way, but that's one I will want to own in hardcover. And yeah, never buy a Remender trade. Those hardcovers are too perfect. Coda's one of those books that I'm waiting on right now because I believe there's something further in the future for it.
Especially, because that like Coda is clearly inspired by Wizards, and I love it. Oh, Simon Spurrier wrote that. I did not realize that.
I would be shocked if we got more Coda. I don't think the hardcover had a volume 1 on it. I think Spurrier wrote that to be complete.
But here's
Interesting.
here's the thing, Bunk. We just got, because we got the hardcover, but then we got an additional trade that was like the volume 2 of the hardcover.
Tyler says still going strong here. Steve, how much is Josh paying you for this exposure? Bunk says, hey, it's Tyler. I know that guy. For those of you watching now or later, because we're going on 3.5 hours now, Tyler has a unique perspective on the industry because he works in the industry. And if you want to thank someone and their team for the stylistic choices of the construction of certain books out there, for the way that the text just sort of rises off the page, you can thank Tyler and his team. He's worked with DC. He's worked with the always stellar Kurt Busiek. So many people out there. Tyler
Also,
says, it's Bunk, the co-host of Two Tired Dads, not to be confused with Two Single Dads.
Also, Tyler's one of the most talented people we know, but he's also one of the most shy and humble because he's like, no one wants to talk to me. It's like, shut up, dude.
One of the first real exposures to the near mint condition Discord and how it could allow me to be part of a greater community was being invited by Sam and Tyler into the book club where they were reading and reviewing the Jeff Johns flash run, and to be able to communicate with Tyler and enhance my relationship with Josh and the other people in the community and get insight into the industry from someone who really understands it. It means a lot to me to have built these relationships. Bunk says, I paid Josh for my new logo in naked exposure. You may think that's a bum deal for an artist. I posted my video, and within 24 hours, his Kickstarter got funded. So,
man, if I had naked exposures of Bunk, I would make a killing from Hayden alone. Like I could finance a lot of books with those images. Cliff would move mountains.
So speaking of that, if people were to back your $150 tier and wanted a specific sketch, say our mutual friend Sito in Holy Matrimony with Tom King, would that be on the table?
Nope. No. I made my goal. I don't have to whore myself out in that way. No.
Well, you wouldn't be doing the whoring in the actual artwork. I think that would be someone else.
Dude, here's the thing. Here's the fun thing with any piece of art. I will always be the one who looks at it more than anyone. Like, even like Bunk's logo. The hope is like enough people will look at it that will counteract it. I'm the one who has to sit there and do the piece. So, no.
Bunk says, hey now, bunk mates. I love that. Top Bunk premium tier is not accepting new members. We can add you to the wait list if you're interested. I'm sure that's a very select membership, only reserved for
the wife.
The wife who I had at one point dubbed Bunk Mistress B.
Wow.
Well, what's the difference between what's the opposite of a mistress, right?
He kindly corrected me. I'm curious if Bunk knew about this. And
Tyler says, or proven Boston fans.
This has gone off the rails.
That's what's bound to happen when Bunk comes into the
Fair.
chat. I'm surprised James hasn't had much input.
Oh, James is asleep.
Well, bless his heart, because he does a lot for his family and a lot for our community.
James, he's definitely the old man, because at a certain point he's like, I'm done. It's like, oh, we're about to go. Yeah, I'm done. He's like,
we
"Bed's
do
calling."
ask a lot of him, and we're blessed.
We could ask more if he was a mod.
That's one of the reasons why I am going to legitimately have this review out, and it'll still come out sooner than Renee's review of what was it, La Blue Girl.
That's the one.
I just decided honestly to take this off, even though I'm going to put out the original trailer with me wearing this thing, and with the dolls, I'm going to keep that, but the trailer is not going to relay how I'm going to actually review Bible Black, which will not be on this channel, boys and girls. I have a DBZ All-Star After Dark channel, so it does not require people to skip over that on my main channel. Just a hint for those watching this stream, my new style has taken inspiration from Omar of Near Mint Condition. Punk says La Blue Girl is probably having a resurgence of popularity with the rise of Labubus. You are not wrong.
Wow. Really?
This is a Lafufu. His name is Josh.
There we got real weird real quick.
Yeah, I told you that in the Discord.
You say a lot of things. I don't know how. I didn't know half of them were true. Oh.
I keep that because it was actually the first Labubu product that my lady purchased. Yes, she was scammed out of $30, but then a week later she was able to get a real Labubu. Yes, sir.
How much Labubus do you own?
She currently has, I think, 8 or 9 if you include the Hachi poo-poos under the Labubu banner.
I now know what it feels like to be my father when I talked about anime, because you said words I've never heard nor understand.
A Hachi poo-poo is basically the same thing, except it has a human face and they smell of fruit for a little while. Their secret, which is a 1 in 72 blind box, smells like a mochaccino, supposedly.
Unfortunately, I understood all those words, and I don't know if it made it better.
Probably not. If you want to blame anyone for the popularity of Labubus in America, you would probably blame Lisa of Blackpink, and then for better or for worse, people like the Kardashians, people such as Kim and Chloe and Kendall, and one I've just dubbed Clop with a K because they all seem to have K names.
So wait a minute, 2 questions. Are they is it originally Korean based or?
They are out of China and they've been around since 2015. The Labubu brand has, but that original company in full was purchased by a company called Pop Mart in 2019. It wasn't until late 2023 that Labubu started to become popular again, thanks to Blackpink. Bunk says, I blame Josh, not necessarily about Labubus, just in general.
Yeah, I mean, I can blame, like I said, I can blame you for your lack. Yeah, how was the ice cream stream? That one for what, an hour and a half? You know what the difference is? We were on topic, then we moved to shenanigans. Oh, speaking of which, we should call it because Bunk's got video to edit. It is 11:35 at night.
Well, then shifting back to topic, Josh may have a fully funded Kickstarter, but you cannot support it enough because sometimes you have cancellations, sometimes you have tier changes. And when you are supporting this Kickstarter, you are not just supporting Volume 3, you are supporting the continued efforts of this man, this talent, to bring more light and joy into this world. If you don't feel you can support the Kickstarter for I believe, starting at $3 a month, he has a Patreon that you can get behind the scenes works on. He also has, I believe, the first 16 chapters available to read for free on joshgreathouse.com, as well as Unprofessional. Bunk says 2 hours, 50 minutes. We barely touch on the topic. Really fun stream. Then he says, wait, we can cancel our pledge. And I picture him like Mr. Burns. Good to know. Tyler says, Steve saying that kind of stuff is going to make it go backwards. Subtitle, not the man.
I like how it's all just like Josh is terrible. Like the comic's good, Josh. Hey,
and just as a preview, you do have the option to get a tier with all 3 volumes. And not only are you getting the incredible work within, you get the wonderful work on the back, as well as a quote from the woman responsible for this man's existence. I love your art, your style, but it does offend me sometimes. Josh's mom, 2022.
Yeah, because ironically, at one point, because I stopped sharing my screen, then I'm like, oh, let me just get back to working on current bang.
Support the book. It be banging.
Oh my gosh.
Bunk says, I didn't see a tier that came with an original page. Wait, Bunk does love him some original pages. If anyone knows how to help him get an original Bang page or an original Daniel Warren Johnson page, please contact him.
The funny thing is, I told Bunk, I was like, hey, I would gladly print one of these pages and re-ink it if you want. I would charge him less. And he's like, nah, it's not the same. It's not the original. I want that page that I could feel and be like, haha, you peasants, I own this.
And for all y'all retailers out there, or those who want to back the retailer tier, you are getting an incredible bargain because you get 5 copies of Volume 1, 3 copies of Volume 2, and 2 copies of Volume 3. Why 5 copies of Volume 1? Because the industry belief is that Volume 1 is going to sell the most copies.
And it's at 50% too.
Yes. Bunk says, oh, I've got an original Daniel Warren Johnson. Bunk is the only man I know who has successfully baited and captured Daniel Warren Johnson for a certain amount of time and kept him frozen in carbonite for an entire fortnight until he needed to be released to continue work on Transformers.
Huh, Bunk kidnapping people. That sounds on brand. If
Unpro ever gets a physical release, I may take you up on that offer. Ooh, incentive.
Now, here's a fun fact, ye old Bunk. While you were away, I actually did some deep diving into Unprofessional onto the string. Like, we did a lot. We covered a lot on here.
So much. Anime, Bang, Bunk when Bunk wasn't here, Unprofessional, Bunk when Bunk was here.
I gave Torsten 5 new channels to watch.
And a partridge in a pear tree.
We rediscovered I used to do thumbnails.
Amen. It's been a long journey for you, but the work just continues to be stellar.
Yeah, that is page 20 of chapter 22.
The man at work, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank you all for participating in this stream, whether you're watching now or at a later time. I want to, as always, thank those who have commented and thank Josh for participating in this interview, as well as sharing his talents, not just through this interview, but continually. I value him as a person and as a professional. Bunk also says, by the way, I'm collecting images for my video, so feel free to go another 2 hours.
Bunk
are you
doesn't
collecting
make videos.
Images or are you collecting souls?
Bunk doesn't make videos. Who is this?
James keeps track, and I think James at one point said Bunk went 100 days without posting a video.
I think I went 300 or something. I went a while because he's like, Josh is back. It's like, oh yeah.
James don't like me no more. I have to post my videos in the community content. I'm just kidding, James. But thank you for being here, everyone. Thank you, Josh. As always, as I say at the end of each one of my videos, stay healthy, stay safe, and be well.
Doodles.